meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission members are appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaw governing wetlands. As a matter of formality, we'd ask that each person introduce themselves when they speak, and we invite everybody to speak and ask questions. And the second aspect of formality is that we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Arthur Doyle.
Spanligan.
Ingrid.
Ingrid, you're on mute.
Jerry Burke.
Good, Beatty.
And Steve Ivas, Conservation Agent.
Now, Wendy is in the process of connecting. I can see her. Hopefully she'll be with us shortly.
Excellent. Excellent. We should wait for her, John, of course.
Correct.
And Wendy, are you connected? I can see. Oh, there we go. Unmute yourself. Yep.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, there you are. All right. Welcome. Now we're all set to go. Thanks. And first on the agenda tonight is it's actually a sad occasion, but one in which we'd like to take a moment to honor the memory and the contributions made to our beloved colleague, Judith Darrell Kemp. On the 13th of August of 2020, she passed away in the arms of her loving husband, Tom, and the son, Ian. And she served for, 15 years on the Conservation Commission, and she served with distinction. And I think more importantly, she served with passion. She absolutely loved the resources that we protect. And she did, for those 15 years, just a fabulous job. There was nobody that was more articulate in identifying the flora that we see on a daily basis. And she was the #1 protector of those interests that we are committed to protect. So she will live on in our memory and certainly in the memory of the citizens of the town of Milton. And we would like to pass a resolution in her honor, saluting her many years of service, her dedication, her passion, her commitment. And she will serve forever as an inspiration to us. And I would entertain a motion to pass such a resolution on behalf of the Milton Conservation Commission to honor her memory and to create a legacy that will forever be enshrined in the history of our town. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I'd like to hear some folks make a comment because so many of us she was near and dear to our hearts. Ingrid, I know you're on mute right now, but could you say a word or two about Judith and her contributions?
Beginning with she was one who approached me and recruited me to consider joining, and her enthusiasm and her cheerleader for native species and protecting the wildlife that are close to us was always an inspiration to me, and I know to the rest of the commission. She difficult shoes to fill.
Thank you. Anyone else, Arthur?
Thank you, John. Just a tremendous respect for Judith. You used the word passion, and I'd like to accompany that with her knowledge of flora and fauna. I'd like to ask John if in this resolution we might also memorialize her in a tangible manner, and do so by having a tree from our tree bank planted in an appropriate location and marked accordingly in her memory.
That's a wonderful idea, and I enthusiastically second that as a motion. Would anybody like to speak in support of that motion?
I would. Yes, please. Thank you. Arthur, I think that's a lovely idea, and I just want, I can think of nothing better actually to memorialize Judith in our memory and for the benefit of the community, because she really was just so much more than a member of the Conservation Commission. Judith really took me under her wing on this board, but we often spoke at length about her membership with her church, the Unitarian Church, and also of the Milton Garden Club. And I'm very grateful for her recruiting me for the Garden Club, as well as giving me the support and guidance as a new member on this commission. She's very loved and will be very missed.
Well said.
Well, I'd like to echo those who said that she's very knowledgeable, very dedicated, but came across always, I did not know her that long, but she came across as a sincere and just a nice person. Now, with respect to that tree, I assume it's going to be a Norway maple.
I would hope so. Yes,
A
indeed.
giant
Very.
oak would be more appropriate.
A sequoia.
Yeah.
All right. Without more discussion, then I'd call for a vote, and all those in favor of the resolution to honor her, particularly with the planting of a significant tree in an appropriate location with signage to honor her memory and her legacy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And would you record that in the minutes, certainly, Steve, but in addition, we should probably memorialize that in a formal fashion and send it to the select board. And I think we could we could use the assistance of Arthur Doyle to make sure that happens in the correct fashion.
I will be happy to, Mr. Chairman, and I just need to say a couple of words. I loved her quick wit and her sense of humor. It was incredibly good. I really enjoyed dealing with her. I respected it highly. Just want to say that.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll move on to our agenda, which the first is the request for determination of applicability, the MBTA right-of-way. This is the vegetation management. Is there a person here to support this application?
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Clary Cucho. I'm Director of Environmental Compliance for Keolis Commuter Services. We presented the RDA to your commission to go over the maps and delineations of your town jurisdiction where the tracks are lined. This happens every 5 years. It can happen sooner if need be. And the jurisdiction behind the vegetation management plan is the Department of Agricultural and Agriculture. I always get that tongue-tied when I try to say that. Agricultural Resources. The regulations are 333 CMR 11.0, and they incorporate the resource areas and the Wetlands Protection Act as well. Every 5 years, your commission will receive an RDA. It's part of the permit for the 5-year vegetation management plan. So before you, I don't know if I can share my screen. Will I be able to share my screen?
I think Steve can assist you on that.
Well, I'm just sharing the screen. Let me ask you if this is coming up for anybody. This is the map, Boston, Milton, and the railroad line. Can anybody see it?
Not I.
Huh.
Have a hard copy.
Okay.
It's the last page.
Yes, it's the last page of the hard copy, but you should be able to see it. Ha! Sean, any suggestions? I've hit share.
Could share, well, several options should approach, and the one that's sharing to your computer or whatever slideshow or presentation you're attempting to bring up should be the first one there.
It says share with others. Okay. Curious. Select PDF file. But that's about all I get. Let me go back out and I don't want to close the tabs. I want to keep the tabs up, right? This is frustrating.
Well, while you're trying to do that, let me ask you a question. Clary,
Yes.
there you go. There you are. Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
there.
do we have it now?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay.
Can you, Clary, can you trace for us, maybe by directing Steve with his cursor there as to the area that we're talking about? And I think
Right. So if there's a legend at the bottom of this map, within your jurisdiction, you have maybe about a mile of
Oh,
track that crosses your jurisdiction along the Ponset River, right? The yellow zones are areas of no spray zone, and the light blue are limited spray zones. This is all incorporated into the VMP. So if you were to actually right now, the VMP is under public comment period with DAR until October 9th. And basically, I think you've gone through this process in previous years. The markings of each zone are to determine the spray patterns and the controls that our environmental monitor will have while the licensed applicator is conducting the work. We do spray pre-emergent in May and June, and post-emergent in the fall. So foliar application in the fall and pre-emergent application in late spring. And I think I'll just open it up to questions for all of you folks to discuss with me whatever questions you may have.
thank you very much, Clary, for that. I having difficulty looking at the yellow zone where the no spray is. And I have a particular concern because not in the area of the map that's depicted, and this may be a difference between the Keolis line and the MBTA line, but I'm particularly concerned with the area towards the Adams Street Bridge, because adjacent to the Adams Street Bridge is, according to CZM, it's the largest smelt hatchery in New England. And I want to make sure that any spray used, now that's an MBTA line at that juncture. I understand it's not Keolis, but I didn't know if this was a joint vegetation plan with the T or not.
It is not. This is only for the purple line.
Okay.
And if there is, but the regulations state the same across railroads and transit. So if there is an open deck bridge, or if there is water, the application of a no spray zone would be along that area. So so I'm quite sure if you were to have questions along that, I really don't know what area you're talking about. But if there is a bridge and there is a river crossing under the tracks, whether it's transit or any other railroad, that would be considered a yellow zone, a no spray zone. However, one thing to keep in mind is the regulatory authority, FRA, Federal Railroad Act, requires us to maintain completely full, free of vegetation, the track and the roadbed. So even though it's a yellow zone, the only spray that we will always have to apply will be right on the tracks, tie to tie. However, crossing the bridge, we would never spray. Does
Right.
that?
Steve, when you're looking at that, I'm unable to locate this, but I believe that area is where the demolition project is, where those yellow
That
areas
is,
are.
yes, John, that is correct. This area is the exact area of what we call Zero Truman Highway, the former paper mill.
Right.
And in fact, the closest point to the river is very close to the tunnel underneath the tracks. And
Mhm.
there is a at-grade crossing over the tracks to access that former paper mill over in this location, which would be upstream location here, by the blue and the dash dotted line here. Okay, so that's one access location, and here's the other access location down here. Okay.
And I think in between those two locations, there's also another location where it can be accessed as well. It's
Okay.
sort of like a dirt path.
Okay.
Okay. The reason I asked Clary if this is a joint venture with the T is because we've had two unfortunate experiences with the T's vegetation control plan. Well, 5 years ago and 10 years ago. One was simply a line of sight issue, and they cut down a whole lot extra trees. We did have a consent agreement with them that they were to pay us a certain amount of money, up to $15,000, and then that was to be used for replanting trees, and they were going to provide the labor for doing the actual planting, and that it never happened. The second one was there was a spray applied to the Adams Street Bridge area adjacent to Elliott Street, and the commission members referred to that as the nuclear blast on Adams Street, because it killed every living thing on the slope. And so we have some concerns with that. And that was permitted. It had the, allegedly approved by EPA chemicals, but there's something about the application process that created havoc. And with those two experiences, we just want to be very careful, and not just about the chemicals applied, but the application itself. And one thing that comes to mind here is that there's a demolition contractor on site. And I didn't know what provisions you made to make sure that folks that are in the area at the time are warned and kept away from the spray and the chemical application.
Well, that's a good point. The tracks are really well adjacent to that paper mill near the bridge. And I guess we would have to understand when the work is going to be done. But I will tell you one thing, the environmental monitor that will be on site at all times when the applicator, the certified applicator, is conducting their work is knowledgeable and understands that there are certain restrictions that need to be followed, whether there's people around or there's considerations of wetlands or the markings themselves or any other like agricultural fields. So they would not spray if there's actual work being done adjacent to the tracks. Also, for your information, DAR has a process, whereas if you have a particular complaint or a concern, or any one person across the entire state has a concern about chemicals being applied wrongly, if you will, you actually can request a full investigation from them, and an applicator can actually lose their license for this. And there's a legal process for it. So they do have a process, and that's also spelled out in the VMP.
One quick question about the actual application. How is it applied? Is it by individual backpack sprayers, or is it an overspray, or how is that actually conducted?
That's a very good question. It has to be on high rail. The certified applicator needs to maintain a daily log of weather conditions, of temperature, everything from where they're going to collect water, when they're going to mix. And the high rail truck has, the applicator truck has different types of nozzles that can extend or can retract depending on the type of spray they're going to be doing. So if it's on track only for the roadbed, it will only be spraying downwards right on top of the tracks. The only time we use backpacks or stump treatment is when trees are cut to clear the vegetation that's a hazard along the right of way. And for off-track reasons, our licensed applicators would use the backpack.
So as a follow-up to that question, first of all, just clarify, what's the rights, the approximate rights beyond what the rail tracks are? And what is there, how do you prevent overspray?
So I didn't understand the first part of that question.
First question is, what do you, relative to where the actual train tracks are, how much do you own or have rights to in either direction? And then how do you limit or prevent overspray with that equipment?
That's a very good question, because each town will have different property lines. It's not like highway and utilities, whereas they have a specific easement and you can expect, 50 feet from. In the railroad, each town is different. The jurisdiction property of the right-of-way is different. So what we use as markers is, number one, the fence line of the MBTA, if there exists one. And we also take a look at the valve plans over time to make sure that we are aligned to spray. Also, the individuals who have been doing this work for more than 20 years, the certified applicator and the environmental monitor, study the maps ahead of time, and they know well the tracks, the track structure, and also the areas that they're conducting spray. And one of the objectives is to reduce as much spray as we can. So if there's work, we have best management practices in place. So if there's work, for example, replacement of ties in this area, there's no need to spray the roadbed. So we wouldn't spray that year. And other best management practices would be, once the trees are cut back and are no longer a hazard directly affecting the railroad tracks, those trees are treated, stump treated. And then there's a cyclical methodology to maintaining that vegetation over time.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Arthur? Was curious as to wind conditions beyond which spraying will not occur.
If it's raining, if it's windy, if it's cold, we take a look at and you will hear the train behind me. I'm sorry about that. I
Very
can't get away from them. We have to follow specific criteria established by DAR and the Pesticide Control Board. And we cannot spray under certain circumstances. Does that answer your question?
It does. It would be good if those circumstances could be ultimately shared with us, please.
Sure, it's all included in the VMP link that was actually incorporated into the letter with the application for the RDA. But I can probably incorporate that link and share it with you via chat, if I can do that. Maybe?
That'd be great.
No? I don't know if I can do that. It doesn't seem to, the chat doesn't seem to work. But I can send it to the agent and they can distribute it to you.
That would be
Like
great.
I mentioned, the VMP has public comment period ending October 9th. Another really important point is every year at the beginning of the year, your town, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health receive a package, a certified mail package with the yearly operating plan. That yearly operating plan will tell you what chemicals are going to be applied and the time frames, the time of year. And this coming year, since COVID, we're going to be also emailing you a link to the agents so that they can distribute the yearly operating plan. That yearly operating plan also has a 45-day comment period. So if there is any change or if there is any concern from the commission, you can definitely review the yearly operating plan and send your questions during that period.
Thank you. And getting that link to Steve would be very helpful because I didn't find it.
Okay,
That may be my oversight.
that's fine. I will send it to you.
And I'd like to suggest that it may be appropriate to issue a negative determination with conditions. And one of the conditions that I suggest is that we be given notice as to when the spray is going to take place. That is pre-spray notice. Because I am concerned with the construction project going on there. I want to make sure that that's coordinated.
How long is that construction project? Is it the demo of the paper mill?
Right now, it's the demo, but we do expect to have a plan for reconstruction of something.
Okay,
We don't have the something yet, but we know they're going to build something.
And the demo is expected to take until the end of this year, 2020.
okay, so we won't spray until May of next year, second week to third week of May. And you will get that information at the beginning of the year, Mr. Kiernan.
Great, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
I know it's tough to ask because we're just a smaller piece within a larger length of rail line, but would it also be possible to get the monitoring conditions when the spray was applied? Or when the
That
spray
is
gets
all,
applied?
absolutely. That's all included in full detail in the VMP. I'll send a
Okay.
link. I think it's really, I mean, it's late night reading is not an easy read, but it has a lot of information for many of you who are interested in falling asleep over a vegetation management plan.
I know them very well, so.
All right, any other questions from commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question? Hearing none, I'm looking for a consensus, but it appears to be that this would be appropriate for a negative determination with the conditions that we've mentioned, and that is the notice, which Clary has already indicated we're going to get prior to the second and third week of May of 2021. Are there any other conditions that anybody would like to add to that? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue a negative determination? Yes, Jerry.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Hans, no further discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Yep.
Next on the agenda is number 3, notice of intent, 5 Hillcroft Road.
And John, there it is on screen, okay, I believe?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No.
Okay. Huh. All right.
Here we go.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, is the applicant on board and ready to go?
Yes, Mr. Kiernan. How are you this evening, everyone?
Oh, good.
So we are planning, we have a a Cape style house, and it's got what would be considered by the town a half second floor right now. And we're looking to expand that square footage out to be a full floor, and then to add what would be considered a half square or half floor on for the third floor. The new construction is not going to exceed the foundation of the existing structure. So it won't be going over the breezeway or the existing garage that you see there. It'll just be staying over the main house.
And the back deck is currently is there, correct?
Correct. We went through this a couple of years back to get that back deck in.
So the footprint will remain the same, correct?
Correct.
All right. Are you aware of our rules and regulations that during the construction phase, the equipment needs to be stored outside of our jurisdiction? And you're awfully close to Gulliver's Creek there. So I just, if you need to have the contract to think about how long the equipment has to be on site, and where they could store it overnight, because we don't want them stored there overnight, and we don't want any refueling going on within our jurisdiction. And that jurisdiction would be, depends on how you count, either 100 feet or 200 feet from Gulliver's Creek.
Sure. Would that also include our garage?
For storage, yes. Well, I mean, I know you have a car in there, but this would be construction equipment. The reason we're concerned with construction equipment is because of the hydraulic lines. They're always popping, and the hydraulic fluid will pour out, so that we're very concerned with where that equipment is stored.
What kind of construction equipment, though? I mean, you're talking about nail hammers and air compressors would be the extent of it, I would imagine.
Yes.
It would be earth moving equipment that he's referring to.
I'm sorry?
It would be earth moving equipment, which it doesn't sound like would be.
There's no
required.
earth moving equipment. It's
Oh, okay.
going to be hammers, saws, and electrical equipment.
So no boom truck or anything like that? I thought there would be a boom truck involved. That's why I brought it up.
I don't believe so. And I mean, if there was, and I imagine that it's going to be built, it's going to be framed as the floors go up by the framers. I'm not a framer, but I don't think that there'll be a boom truck on site. And if there was, I can't imagine that it will be there overnight.
Perfect.
I mean, we haven't, there was nothing in any sort of a contract that I signed with the contractor about a boom truck. So,
Okay. And I'm sure there would be, because he'd want you to pay for it.
right.
Pretty good indication. All right.
Are there any other concerns or questions that I could answer?
Questions by commissioners? I'm very familiar with the house, so I don't have any questions or concerns for that matter. And if there's no earth moving going on, then the erosion control would be, I think it would be a remote risk. But somebody else might have a different view. Are you taking off the roof as it currently exists?
Yes.
Sometimes that debris does get into the brook.
Yeah, just
Right.
make sure that the debris is controlled.
So the roof will be coming off, and there will be a dumpster in our driveway. When we did our kitchen a few years ago, there was a 30-yard dumpster in our driveway then. There wasn't much issue with control then. I don't believe anything made it out of it. I think more stuff made it in it that probably shouldn't have been in there from the neighbors, but it's I think that's probably the extent of what's going to be there.
Jamie, this is Steve Ibis. As
Hey,
long
Steve.
as the dumpster is sealed at the bottom, okay?
Okay.
Not to allow any liquids out.
Okay.
Very important.
Understood.
Yep.
I'll make sure of that because I've seen some roached out dumpsters.
Right.
Any other questions from commissioners? We don't hear any other abutters or members of the public that have a question or a comment. Not much. Does anybody feel that we need to see the site? I do not. I'm familiar with it. But I just want to ask if anybody else feels that they need to see it. So, some people may remember that just to the upper right-hand side of the lot line, that's where the underground
The culverts.
the culverts.
Culverts.
And I know every time we're in the area, we've been on California Ave, we've been on Hurlcroft before. We usually stop stop by and take a look at those to make sure they're still free flowing.
Oh, they are.
That is a sensitive area, but everything seems to be in order from my view anyway. So this is a notice of intent. Are there any particular conditions? If we were to issue the order of conditions, are there any other comments? I mean, what I said before about storage of equipment and refueling of equipment is part of, it's a boilerplate condition. So
Sure.
it's on the form. You'll see it. But that doesn't sound like it's going to be a problem. The dumpster, that would be a special condition that would have to have a sealed bottom.
Okay.
And the debris control would be a special condition that anything coming off the roof would have to be contained so as not to fly into the brook or elsewhere. Is there anything else that any commissioner has by way of a special condition? No? Hearing none, is there a motion then to issue the order of condition with the special conditions that I just listed? Do I hear a motion?
John?
Arthur, you said yes?
Yes.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
Wendy, thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, I think we're good to go, Jane.
Thank you. Mr. Kiernan,
All right.
if you have any questions, just stop by and let me know.
Fair enough.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, David. I know.
Bye now.
Next, number 4 is notice of intent, 12 Wentworth Farms.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey, John.
Hi.
Before I start, I just wanted to pass on my condolences to the commission. I was so shocked to hear of Judah's passing. I had no clue she was even sick. But obviously, in the time I presented in front of you folks, her passion for the wetlands was obvious. And I think just beyond, the loss to her family, it's a loss for your commission and the town of Milton too. So,
Thank you for those comments, Todd.
yeah, my condolences. So again, all right, moving on. 12 Wentworth Farm Road, continuation of what we've been permitting before with the Wentworth Farm subdivision. I believe one of the owners may be on the call, Allison Mills, with me. She's the owner of the lot. We are looking to permit a 4,000 square foot house on the property. Right now, the lot, as the other lots have, consists of a mix of mature trees and fallen trees with very little understory. Lot 9 does have a finger projection of wetlands that extends up between Lot 9 and Lot 10. That wetlands and the 25-foot no disturb associated with it really renders about 25% of this lot undevelopable, so to speak. So this lot really represents probably one of the smallest area-wise we've had on the site, and it does reflect with the size of the house. So we are proposing a 4,000 square foot house with the septic system. We are proposing a pool and a driveway as well. All told, the amount of disturbance we are proposing is in line with what we did show under the initial subdivision. All work we are proposing will take place outside the 25-foot, obviously. I'm not sure if the commission members did look through the notice, but we do list out, as we have before, how we're meeting performance standards of both the state and the town. I can go through those separately if you want. I think they've really gone through the same ones beforehand. But with the state, with no work in the BVW itself, we do meet the performance standards. And with the town, utilizing erosion control, we don't have catch basins on site, and we do delineate the 25-foot with hay bales or silt sacks for the plotting of the flags. So I can put some areas out for you. Again, the lot itself is 28,000 square feet. We're proposing 12,000 square feet of disturbance in the 100-foot buffer zone. 4,700 of that will end up being impervious. 6,700 total impervious on the site, and that keeps us well under the allowed 35% per the subdivision. And as I mentioned to you before, we are, even right off the bat, we have about 25% of the lot that's unusable. So a lot of this lot is preserved just in that finger of wetlands you can see down the bottom right of the plan. One of the project mitigation, as we talked about before, and I'll list them off real quickly. We've reduced the lot sizes per the cluster development bylaw. We are going with a low impact design with reduced roadway widths and no paved sidewalks, though we are using some type of grass paved type of sidewalk along one side of the road. We have provided 181 square feet of open land in the conservation restriction that was just recently, I believe, finalized. We do provide roof drains to capture the first half-inch of rainfall over the square footage of this roof, and that is reflected on this plan and this design. We do have tried to reduce yard slopes where possible, and you can see that's why we do have a stone wall on this site. It keeps the front yard fairly level, and we get rid of that unnatural drop off to the roadway there.
Hey, Jeff, can I stop you for a second?
Of course.
On capturing the roof runoff,
Yep.
where is that captured?
Right where your cursor is, John. Go straight up. Keep going up toward the top. Now go to left. Left.
Oh, right
there.
here.
Right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that represents half-inch over the roof area, captured into the Cultex we show on the other plan. And we do that without taking credit for infiltration at the same time. So it's just a direct volume.
Okay.
Where are they? As always, we are still using low phosphorus fertilizer, and all areas disturbed on the site will be loamed and seeded and stabilized. One of the obvious parts of this plan you'll see is the pool. I understand with this commission and other commissions I've both been on and presented in front of, sometimes there's a concern there as far as chlorinated water being discharged to the wetlands, and that's an obvious concern. I think a lot of this was based on how it used to be in the past with the sand filters or even the DE type filters with the pool, where a lot of times you would have to backwash that filter. So you'd be running water from the pool through it backwards to discharge the sediments, and you'd have a large volume of water that you would have to discharge. That would typically just run over the site, and then if you're next to a wetland, obviously the potential for that to run into the wetland would happen. What we have done in this case here is first off, use a pool that has a cartridge filter. So a cartridge filter is just something that you can pull out, rinse off on the deck just to get any sort of solids off of there and put it back in. There's no backwash associated with that, so you don't have to run a volume of water, and you don't have to flush the pool to clean that filter off. So that's one of the big things. We've scoured the internet. I've talked to peers. I've talked to DCR and looked at their regulations. DCR puts out regulations for pools that are adjacent to drinking water reservoirs. And we've incorporated some of these mitigation strategies into this list that you'll see under the pool mitigation. I can just read those off real quick to you. And as I mentioned, we are utilizing the cartridge filter instead of the DE or the sand filter, so eliminate the backwash. We're going to use a salt generating pool, which minimizes and doesn't just throw in large volumes of chlorine at once. It keeps it to a certain level, the level it has to be at, and takes out the guessing. We've designated a pool discharge rain garden that you'll see on the site. And what that does is it gives an area for the homeowners to discharge this water to. There are times when a pool will obviously have to be discharged. That'll be in times when you have heavy rainfall over a period of time that will cause that pool to get too high. Or when you're closing the pool in the winter, you're going to have to lower that level to account for any raising from freezing water and things like that. We provide an area on site that can be discharged. It's been designed based on the infiltration of the site with the septic system we've used and the same type of soils. In this one small area of the site, we have, I think, about 42 test pits and almost 32, I believe, percolation tests. So we have a pretty good idea of what the soils can handle out there as far as infiltrating water. So we've made sure that we've designed that rain garden with salt tolerant plantings. We've kept the rain garden a minimum of 50 feet away from the BVW. And we'll have the homeowners, you would put it in the order of conditions as far as not discharging anything that would exceed that volume of that pool area. So we wouldn't spill over. We also have to put in the order of conditions that we could test the pH before any discharge. We've put a stone filter around the entire perimeter of the pool where it would back up against the wetlands. What this allows for is any runoff from that pool deck be it just regular precipitation or anything that has chlorine in it from people dripping and things like that, that will be able to infiltrate around the perimeter before it enters the yard, and it will stop any potential chlorine from getting again toward the wetlands. And another thing we would ask, we put in the order conditions, that if the conditions above that we just went through couldn't be met as far as the pH, you could have a water removal with a waste management company or a pump truck for the occasional times that water would need to be removed. So that said, open it up for questions.
If I may, how many gallons are in that pool? And when you're talking discharge, are you talking total emptying of the pool?
No, my recollection, I think it's about 18,000 gallons in that pool of that size. It is not emptied. It's just emptied at a level that gets it below the skimmers. Typically, we're only talking a couple of inches down. It's just to account, you do not empty these entire pools. You don't even empty them a significant amount. It's just to get the water level down below the skimmers. So if it does freeze up or it does snow melts in there, it doesn't flood up over the top of these pipes.
All right, so in addition to the number of gallons that will be discharged into the rain garden, along with the pH, who is going to be responsible for that? And how do we as a commission, maybe John can help, how are we as a commission going to be policing that?
Well, I will say, as it is today, and I have talked to the homeowner, I mean, obviously people are more cognizant of where they live and protecting the wetlands. As far as policing this pH, that has to be policed by the homeowners, and they have to agree to that. And that's similar to any other type of agreement you may have as far as not putting lawn clippings in a 25-foot no disturb or using a low phosphorus fertilizer. There's a certain level of belief you have to have in these homeowners that live in these areas that they are respecting the wetlands. And just as a low phosphorus fertilizer or something like that, the commission can't go out and check every time they're being used. There has to be a level of trust there. And I will say with the pools, with this day and age, we're seeing more of them because more folks are trying to do less traveling and stay home and having their recreation there. That was actually in the discussion I had with Allison at the time. You know, this is going along with a lot of other people. It seems to be, if you talk to pool companies, they're crazy busy right now because a lot of folks are just trying to keep everyone at home and do less traveling. So
will we be placing a pump in the pool with the
pools have discharges. They have hoses in the nozzles that circulate the water through the pool. And there is typically a discharge that put in with one of those nozzles, and it's just connected to a garden hose. And that's how the discharge. It's not like a high velocity volume pump or something that you'd get like a dewatering pump or something like that. It's more of a slow over time thing. It's not trying to get a big gush of water out. Anytime you drain a pool, it's just with a garden hose.
All right, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from commissioners?
I would just ask that we be provided a spec on the pool equipment,
Yes.
more specifically on the chemical aspect.
Right, and the fact that it's essentially a sealed system, it's a cartridge filter system.
Right.
Jeff, you can provide, I'm sure the applicant can provide that because they're going to have manufacturer's specs from the pool company.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, if they don't have that now, then I'm sure it's something they can get, you know, whatever how you would want to condition that. I'm sure they'd be happy with.
All right, now, there is an issue that I believe to be a non-issue, but I should put it on the public record, and that is that these wetland delineation lines are more than 3 years old now. And what I would suggest, Jeff, if you could, I know there are other orders of conditions or notices of intent that will be coming forward. If you could file an RDA for that line, and for the other commission members, I have taken a look at this, and the 3-year mark passed in December of 2019, and we usually ask for an extension, and we have the authority to extend those lines up to 3 years, as we've all done in the past, and I think we're all familiar with that process. COVID-19 hit and a lot of the DEP timeframes were stayed by the governor. But unfortunately, this line expired in December before the stay occurred. So I think it is appropriate that you do file a vehicle to extend that line delineation. And just so the commission knows and the public knows, given this whole project, we received a conservation restriction for a lot of open land. It's part of the zoning agreement with the planning board, so that we actually do have preserved open space here, and a lot of that open space is based upon that line. So the commission is relying upon the line as much as the homeowner is. And I think that I went back to the regs to see whether or not we could do it sort of nook pro tunc, which is looking backwards in time. And I think the most appropriate way, if you were to file an RDA to recommit those lines, we've all been there, and I'm not aware of any major changes in topography. There's no elevation change as part of the building here, so I don't expect it to be any movement of that line, which we had previously approved. But I think the best way to handle this, because we do expect additional notices of intent to be filed for the other lots, if you could file an RDA, I think that's the fastest way to do it. And I'd ask Steve to go up there and just confirm my belief, and I think it's Steve's belief too, that there have been no changes that would impact the location of that line. Is that a fair statement, Steve?
Yes, it is.
All right. And would you just take another look at that so that if we get an RDA from the applicant, then we could make short order of it.
So
That
we
makes-
have an RDA with the request to extend the order. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We have to have some vehicle for doing it because the regs don't provide for a sort of an after the fact extension. The extension should have been asked for in December, but I understand that there were lots of delays in the project that were certainly beyond the control of the applicant.
Yeah. Now we did, Joan, when I was on the commission, still extend those when they were expired. I'll just throw that out there. Not your commission, a different commission, but I understand.
I know.
There's a lot more
thought of it,
lawyers
but
on your commission, I think.
I actually went back and I read the reg. And I think the most appropriate and technically correct way to do it would be to have a vehicle of an RDA. And
Okay.
it's not cumbersome, it's not expensive, and I think we can address it in short order.
Sure, that's fair. Okay.
But just for clarification purposes, would that apply to this parcel, or are you talking about,
It would, yes.
so just the delineation would just be for this one?
No, we
Parcel.
have to do it for all of them because I don't know if you remember this. We approved this back in 2016,
16.
right?
Yeah.
In 16. But the idea was we approved the street and we had the lot lines, but we didn't have the individual plans for building.
I thought we have seen a few of those.
Right. So the understanding was we issued an order of conditions for the general site plan, including the roadway, the cul-de-sac, the utilities, et cetera. And then we anticipated and requested that each lot have an individual notice of intent. And that's what we're doing now. So we did approve these lines for the overall development. But now the 3 years have gone by in large part because there were difficulties getting the utilities in. I think it was a gas strike and then COVID, and there were lots of holdups on this. So it was not any kind of dilatory tactic on the applicant's behalf.
Mhm.
Yeah, and honestly, we were under that impression that every time we renewed, we were kind of renewing the lines. With each passing notice of intent. Would the idea be the RDA would have to go in? Can we still get the order of conditions for this lot? Is what I'm saying before the RDA goes in for the wetland line.
Yeah, I believe you can because I'm comfortable that the line has not changed. We've certainly been there a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we were at, 92 Ford Ranch Road?
52, yeah.
52, right, 52. I think we all took a walk up there at the time. So and for the public's benefit, the commission has been in this general area within the last 6 months.
Okay.
And I didn't see anything that would suggest that line is moved. And I don't mean to be facetious. Lines generally don't move. But
No,
for
that's fair.
periods of time, they can.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's fair. Yeah, we were trying to, I know the owners wanted to get the, the house built and everything else. So if it's just, administrative, let's get this done, make sure folks feel comfortable. Let's do it as long as we please don't hold up the order for this lot. That's all I asked.
Yeah, I don't see any need to hold up the order here. I'm comfortable that the line is accurate as depicted on this plan.
Okay, great.
Anybody else, if anybody has a different view of that, then I invite their comment or suggestion.
John, Steve Ivas here.
Yeah.
Not a different view. I agree, and I've been there as recently as a couple of weeks ago. I regularly check out the progress of the other structures in that subdivision, and I haven't seen any changes in the wetlands at all.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, any other comments or questions by commission members? I don't see any. How about abutters or members of the public? Any questions, comments, or suggestions? Nope, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the order of conditions with the conditions that have been mentioned? And those conditions would include, as Hans suggested, that we get the manufacturer's spec from the pool company to show essentially a closed system, a cartridge-based system, so there's no discharge of chlorinated water into the wetlands.
Right. Yeah.
And then
Understood.
So moved.
what was the other one?
John, there's a whole list of specs for the pool that are on the plan. Is that correct, Jeff?
That is, there's a comprehensive list in there. You guys are welcome to use
And
them
we
for
can-
any pool you see come across your way.
Yeah, and we'll take that list and put them in these special conditions, okay?
Sure.
Is that okay with you, John?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. And then for the homeowners' benefit, we have our usual, we call them boilerplate conditions. They're not onerous, but they just require that you keep equipment outside of our, and when I say equipment, I'm talking about motorized equipment and particularly hydraulic equipment. You can't park it overnight in our jurisdiction, and you can't refuel overnight, but there's plenty of space up there to keep it out of our jurisdiction, so it should not be a problem.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Jerry, did you move to approve it?
Yes, I did.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Take
Thanks,
care of
Jeff.
yourselves. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff.
Next is extension of permit of order of conditions, 1259 Brush Hill Road. And we actually have 3 of these. 2 DEP numbers and Lot C.
And John, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up a colored, a series of plans for lots C and D that are actually coming from the number 7. But Marion can use it for to talk about. Is that if that's okay with Marion? Just McKittrick. And if I can get this to share, I'll be all set. There we go. All right. Okay. There we go. Okay, Marion, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, certainly. And there are 2 lots there, split in the middle, and I'll see if I can enlarge that as well. Okay?
Yep.
There we go.
Marion, can you tell us what your proposal is?
Yes. There are 2 orders of conditions applicable to 1259 Brush Hill Road. They were issued in 2018 on January 10th. So on January 10th, 2021, they'll expire. So the application is to ask you to extend the time for those. These lots are being marketed, and there is one buyer looking at a plan. But it takes quite a while to go through this process, and I think that we'll need an extension on the order. The first order of conditions applied to Lot D. So as I'm looking at it, it's the lot closest to Brush Hill Road. That's Lot D. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yes. And the second order of condition applies to the roadway improvement plan, which is Hemingway Drive. So there were certain changes and improvements that, including the bringing in of utilities under that roadway, and those required an order of condition. So that's the second order of conditions. That's 0529. The other lot, Lot C, was had a request for a determination of applicability, and there were some conditions that the Conservation Commission put on those. One of which is that a new lot owner has to come in with a plan, a site plan for his house to show where he's going to locate it. So I believe they're here tonight with a proposed plan for that. I thought at least that an RDA may also require an extension of time. It was issued at the same time as these orders of conditions. So I've given you a letter requesting that if it's required.
Perfect. And you know, I don't know the answer. My reaction is yes, it does require.
So,
But do you
John,
agree?
I don't believe an RDA expires once there's a negative determination made, unless there's a substantial change to the plan that would affect resource areas.
I agree with that 100%. Thank you, Hans.
Was it a negative? I thought it was a positive.
If it was a positive, then they have to
It
follow
was
that line.
negative.
Oh, wasn't. All right, I was reacting to what I thought was a positive. Okay.
The language of the RDA is that it's a negative determination, but then you did add conditions, the same ones you added to Lot D. So it's kind of confusing, but the determination was negative.
Okay.
Please forgive me, but is this the area that we did the site walk in the winter? The engineer was Burke DeSalle or DeSalle Burke?
No,
That's
Oh, it's not
that's Avenue A, Jerry.
Okay,
It's parallel to this. It's on the other side of the woods,
Yeah.
okay.
but it's
All right,
parallel
thank
to Hemingway Drive.
Thank you, because that was appealed, correct?
yeah, that's completely different.
Okay.
All right, so let's take them one at a time. Right now, you've got on Lot D, closest to Brush Hill Road. That's the order of conditions, and you're simply asking for it to be extended for what period of time?
Well, we don't have a buyer, and I don't know what the commission normally does with requests. I mean, we'd ask for a 3-year extension, but if you're not willing to do that, whatever length of time you can do. We don't have a buyer yet for the lot, so we don't know. You know, we don't. They'll have to do a notice of intent, and so it could take a while. That's all I'm saying. Whatever the commission feels would be best is what we'd like.
Sure. We've done 1, 2, and 3-year extensions. I think the most recent one we did, somebody asked for a 3, and we compromised. And we extended it for 2 years.
Mhm.
And I don't have strong feelings about this, other than this is an extremely sensitive area. And we just finished with one where I said that I don't think lines are going to change, and I think that's true here. But it is a very, very sensitive area because of the ACEC and all of the blue spotted salamanders on the Hemingway Drive, et cetera. So I know that it might make sense to take another look at it in 2 years. But I'm not hung up on that if other commissioners have a view.
Well, basically, you're just applying and the way you're doing now and get an extension, correct? There's nothing beyond that.
Right.
Well, then, because of the sensitivity of the area, I think maybe a 1 year would be more appropriate. No buyer, they're gonna have to come in and do a notice of intent. And the closer we get to look at things, the better, time-wise. Just one member's opinion.
All right, I don't have strong views one way or the other. I just don't want to put form over substance here. I want to make sure that we've got a solid basis for whatever our vote is, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years. Steve, do you have a view on this in terms of the time extension?
Well, the notice of intent, to get a notice of intent ready and a house design or something will take the better part of a year. So I might suggest a 2-year period. Once there's a buyer. That's just a suggestion. I just don't want to have them be halfway through their process and then have to refile for another extension, once they have a buyer in a year's time. That's all.
Hans, Wendy, Ingrid, any thoughts?
I think 2 years would be appropriate.
I tend to agree. I think that's a good compromise.
All right, Wendy?
Yeah, I'm willing to go along with the consensus on that, but I'm just curious, does it have to be in full year increments? I mean, could we split the difference and say 18 months?
We can do whatever we want. It's
Yes.
just what Steve
That's a
just said.
compromise.
What he just said was that if there's no buyer now and it takes a year to put a notice of intent with a house design on it, if that's upward of a year, then 18 months is going to be pushing somebody. But again, I don't feel strongly on this. I just want to make sure that we're acting in a practical fashion.
Yeah, I was just doing it from a logistics standpoint, that's all.
All right, is there a consensus for 2 years or 18 months? We've got 3 2 years, 1 year, and 1 18 months.
Okay, I'll toss in with the 2 years.
All right, thanks, Arthur. So everybody live with 2 years? All right, is there a motion to extend this for 2 years?
Moved.
Hans got it. Is there a second? Arthur?
Yeah.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Is that unanimous? I think it is. All right, thanks. So that takes care of Lot D, Marion. Next
Yep.
is roadway improvement.
Roadway improvement, basically the same issue. It depends on who is going to do the road work, and that's all been a matter of negotiation with buyers and with the owner. We do not have a concluded purchase and sale agreement yet for either lot, so I can't say for sure that it's going to happen with the development of the first lot. Well, it's going to happen, but I don't know who's going to be doing it. So, I mean, I guess the same length of time issues apply here as apply to Lot D. The owner is, Matt Scheller is here from the trust. I don't know whether he might have something he'd want to say about that work. It's fairly complicated. There's quite a bit of different steps to putting in the utilities. I think there's some culvert work that's supposed to be done. After the excavation and the other work is done, then the road has to be repaved. So it will take us considerable length of time. It's similar to any roadway in a development, except that there's already an existing road, and this is just work on the road. The sequencing of the work, as I said in the beginning, is not clear at this point because, either the owner is going to do the work before he sells or one of the lot owners is going to complete the work. That's a matter of negotiation, hasn't been worked out yet. So Matt Scheller is on this call. I don't know if he wants to add anything.
Yeah, no, I'm here. You have it correct. We're trying to figure out timing on the roadway. We are working that out with either we do it or a potential buyer, and who knows where that's going. But if we had a 2-year extension, that would be preferable, and hopefully we don't need that. We also need to work around moratoriums on the road for a multitude of environment, through salamander migrations and all that. So we have some periods where we can't work. So I think 2 years would be preferred.
Anybody feel strongly about that? That makes sense. What Marion said and what Matt said makes sense to me. So I would support a 2-year extension on this as well. But anybody feel differently?
I agree.
All right, then is there a motion to extend this one for a period of 2 years?
I'll move these
So,
to 2 years to be consistent.
Okay, thanks, Arthur. Wendy, are you seconding? Wow, thank you. All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Good. Jerry, did you vote?
I did, aye, sorry.
All right, thanks. Unanimous. Next is Lot C. Marion, you're back on?
Well, Lot C is the RDA. You said there's no requirement for an extension.
All right.
I'll do it. I mean, if you prefer to do it anyway, that's fine.
No, I'm fine. I thought it was a positive determination because we had asked for a notice of intent. And
No,
you're
but
right.
you didn't. You didn't ask for a notice of intent. I think the conditions on this RDA are very confusing and may have been an error, but I'm not sure. The same conditions were attached to this RDA as you attached to Lot D. Lot D does require a notice of intent. But this one, if you read the decision, and I provided it with my letter, it says that there is a determination of no applicability.
Is this the one? There was one that I thought there was a structure within 25 feet of the, and that's it.
That's
Do
D.
you have a map? That's what? That's D?
Yeah. Well, first of all, remember that when we filed this, we filed it, David Crispin was the engineer, and he filed a plan and he showed a lot plan for a way of developing the lot so that the house could be built and it would not be within the 100-foot area of jurisdiction or the driveway, as far as I recall. And that's on the plan that you showed. I'm not sure which plan you showed me. That may be the new plan that the potential owner is filing. So, but the original plan that was filed in order to get the RDA showed, let me look, house, garage.
Marion, I think.
No, this is the isn't this the, this is the plan the Conservation Commission approved in 2018, correct, Steve?
I believe so, yes. That's
Yeah.
my impression. That.
So there you
Can you see it
have,
on the screen? Can you see it on the screen now?
yes, yeah, I
Okay.
see it.
Okay, this is the lot you're talking about, Lot C, right?
Right, right. So you see the house located in the center of the lot. You see the limit of clearing, and you see the wetland line and the 100-foot wetland line. And so there was no work within the 100-foot area proposed for this lot, which is why you did a negative determination.
There's the line. The line is over here to the left, and here's the 100-foot
Right,
line right here.
right.
This happens to be a animal access way right here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's just a sort of unique, I guess, condition for this lot that area will remain open for animals to pass through.
Wildlife corridor, it says.
It's a wildlife corridor, it's not a wetland area.
Right.
That I remember all that. I
Mhm.
think what's throwing me off is that in the brochure for Lot C, there are two maps, and
Yes.
one of them I can't tell where the basketball court is going.
Okay, that's the new plan, that's the new owner's plan.
And I'm showing that right here. This is the new owner's plan.
Right.
So is there any grading associated with that basketball court?
I think the applicant is here for that item, item 7, and I'm not representing them, so I can't provide any information.
Stephanie, would you speak?
Yeah, this is Stephanie Horowitz. I'm representing the proposed buyer for Lot C, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about the proposed plan that we've put forward.
Put forward in support of what?
But this is the condition associated with the negative determination.
Correct. So,
What we just saw was a house that's outside of our buffer. And now I'm looking at a basketball court. And what is the line just to the left of the green basketball court? What's that line there?
That's the 100-foot setback.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry, setback, or is that 100 feet from, is that our jurisdictional line?
That's the buffer. It's a 100-foot buffer.
100-foot. It's the 100-foot, it marks a 100-foot area of jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay.
We're
That-
still,
I couldn't tell what that line was. So it's outside of our jurisdiction, so that's consistent with a negative RDA. Yes?
Correct.
correct. However, the approval was still tied to a site plan that had certain characteristics, and the conditions stipulate that this commission approve the proposed site plan, as well as kind of going forward additional planting plans and other requirements. So we're seeking feedback on a revised site plan that still is located outside of the jurisdiction.
Stephanie, I lost you. I don't know if the others did as well. I just,
My audio quality is problematic.
okay. Could you repeat what you just said?
Sure. The original sort of order required that this commission approve the proposed site plan. And so we'd like feedback on a revised site plan in order to help inform our clients' kind of desire to purchase the lot.
So as I started to say before, the basketball court, as you're showing it, the existing grade in that area, I believe there's a change of approximately 10 feet. So I guess the biggest question will be, would there be grading associated with that, the construction of that court, and would that earthwork or construction kick you back into jurisdiction by requiring you go into the buffer?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. The intent is for the work to remain outside of the buffer zone. And so if we are not able to locate the court in the area where it's currently proposed, and if that requires grading into the buffer zone, we would move the court further away in order to keep the work outside of the buffer zone.
And Stephanie, also with the house literally adjacent to the 50-foot wildlife corridor, I see an issue there in just terms of the corner of the house is on the corridor itself. Very
Yep.
difficult to build without some sort of offset of the house itself. It could be simply moved down the page, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we had perhaps mistakenly treated the wildlife corridor as a setback, as something that might be disturbed during construction, but then would be maintained kind of in perpetuity going forward. And if the desire is to treat it just like the buffer zone, then absolutely we'll move the house off of the corridor to allow for construction to occur outside of the wildlife corridor.
Excellent. And then one last thing, there's no access to the garage shown from the driveway here. And that's a simple thing. It's further. It's located right here on the earlier plan. I'm sure it would be close to the maybe almost a perpendicular access across that 25-foot zone there to minimize driveway width and length here. That's just a guess, but that's
Absolutely.
just what's shown on this plan. This is just an early conceptual. I understand.
Yes, we do need to relocate the driveway. There's a note that, that says that we'll respect the zoning requirements. The intent is definitely to minimize the amount of driveway, but I think that we need to study the grading along the edge of the property a bit further in order to understand exactly what the most direct path will be. So the intent would be to revise the driveway location, likely within the setback, but not exceeding the amount permissible by zoning.
Sure. Makes sense to me.
May I ask, the basketball court will increase the impervious area, correct?
Yes, the previous plan noted a 4,000 square foot footprint, and the collection of the basketball court, the garage, the pool, and the house are currently shown much closer to what the zoning code permits, which is roughly 8,000 square feet.
And may I ask the material that they're making the court out of?
The basketball court is an enclosed structure.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So if that's a building, how do you put in a foundation of footings? You're awfully close to the line there. Aren't you now creating jurisdiction? I heard you say you could move it if you had to, but I'm just trying to keep you outside of our jurisdiction, if possible.
Absolutely, and that is the intent. The 5 foot setback was based on a discussion with a very qualified contractor that we work with, and their site work sub about kind of creative ways to tuck the 3/4 court into this corner of the lot. But I think that as we study the grading further and review the constructability, it is possible that we'll need to move it farther away because the intent is to stay outside of the jurisdiction.
Again, John, this looks like a very early conceptual to me.
Right. So all we're doing at this juncture is nothing.
Actually giving some feedback. There was some feedback requested from the commission as to whether this would be okay in their eyes, I guess.
I know, I understand the feedback, but with the negative determination, as long as they stay outside of our jurisdiction, unless they impact on the previous deal that we had, and that was the wildlife corridor.
Right.
But you've already addressed that issue.
The current order of conditions still states that this commission has to approve the proposed site plan. So we understand that this is very schematic and high level and is not ready for approval. But I think that the notable changes relative to what was previously approved are an increase in the footprint paired with the plan for multiple structures on the lot, again, within the zoning requirements. But there are, two notable changes relative to what was previously approved. And so we're seeking feedback to understand if, again, with further development, if, this is likely to be a plan that this commission would approve going forward.
Understood. So have you received sufficient feedback for you to proceed to a final plan?
I'm hoping to get some consensus that provided that the grading and the construction activity stays outside of the jurisdiction, that multiple structures on this lot not exceeding the buildable area permissible by zoning code is a plan that this commission would would likely approve.
Understood. I think you were probably on the call or the Zoom meeting at the time of our last discussion on Wentworth Farms. And with respect to that pool, did you hear the discussion that we had about our concern with discharging? And I'm sure if it's a new pool, it's going to be a sealed system with a cartridge filter. But that's something that's near and dear to our hearts.
Absolutely. And I mean, full disclosure, our client does not plan to build the pool on day one, but he'd like to understand that in the future that he has the flexibility to build one. Again, coming from a point of looking at an existing site plan that shows a single structure in the center of the lot, and a note about 4,000 square foot maximum, which we're not really sure why that was put on there.
Understood.
Well, I just want to ask, is the pool also enclosed or will be open?
No, fair question. It would be an open pool. Okay. An outdoor pool. So it's only the house, the garage, and the 3/4 court that are intended to be enclosed structures. But we understand that the pool counts as part of the buildable area when reviewing the zoning requirements.
Understood. I don't think that we need to take a vote on this unless anybody thinks otherwise.
Am I correct in understanding that there are no concerns in continuing to develop plans for this lot in the spirit of the site plan that's in front of you now?
In the spirit of it, yes, but you don't have a blank check, so we're easy to work with. But again, you see what our concerns are, but we can't prejudge something that we don't have before us.
Okay.
But
Understood.
I think you get the general consensus and level of concern, and you recognize that it's an ACEC area, very sensitive, and apparently the applicant does as well, which is the most important part to us.
Absolutely, and we'll be responsible for the architecture and the design of the site plan, but we'll engage appropriate consultants to put forth an appropriate plan for the lot going forward.
All right, let me test the memory of everybody else. We've been here so often over the years. Not everybody on the commission has, but I know there was an area on this roadway where the wetlands were right next to the road. And Steve, I don't know if you were.
I was not, but I believe the wetlands are next to the road further on down.
When you say down, okay.
Let's take a look.
Further away from Brush Hill Road?
The left.
The wetlands are right next to the, sorry, this is Matt Scheller. The wetlands are right next to the road on Lot D, which is the lot closest to Brush Hill Road.
Lot
That's
D.
my recollection also, John.
Yeah, that's right. It's close. It's away from the river.
Right there.
It's on the lot side. Got it.
Exactly.
That conforms to my memory as well. Okay.
And there's also a stream, of course, that crosses the road to the southerly,
Yes.
where the wetlands are close. Okay.
That is correct. That area I donated to the DCR last year. So
Right.
that whole brook area has been is now DCR owned property.
Wonderful.
Matt, this is probably unfair to you, but do you know what, if anything, is going on the Avenue A side, where there was an issue on the culvert that was perched, and it's actually DCR land, but it adjoins, I think, some land that you have. You wanna talk-
Yeah, I don't,
I think you should.
I know
answer
that
What's that?
Marion can speak better to it. It sounds like it's a little bit of a snafu.
No, I'd just like to say briefly, John, that first of all, your approval of work on Avenue A is on appeal with the regional office, and we do not have a decision yet on that. The final order of conditions that you issued left the culvert that you're referring to out of the work area. There was not going to be any work done on that.
Oh, correct. No, I knew that, but I thought
Yeah.
the DCR was going to weigh in on whether or not they wanted to look for a state grant or, see if anybody could change the perch of the, I think that's the term.
Well, I don't know if, no, I'm not aware that there's been any further work done because the original order is on appeal. So until that is decided, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if we can do the work that you approved,
Got it, okay.
which does not include the culvert.
No,
It's
no.
not going to be a part of that project, but it could be future.
But
Right.
that's why I asked the question, because I knew it was not part of the order.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
didn't know if any progress had been made, and it doesn't sound it.
Well, I haven't been informed of any work by DCR on what could be done, but maybe I just don't know.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay. Can I ask one question about the this lot C before you move on?
Sure.
In your order of in your determination of no applicability, you included some conditions, and one of them was that the lot plan had to be reviewed, the new site plan by a new owner, and that's what you started to do tonight. But you also have a condition in there that a tree plan has to be provided, and I don't understand why that's in there. I think it's an error, because what you did was you took the same conditions exactly that were imposed on Lot D, which has an order of conditions, and you added them to this determination of no applicability. So I'm not saying, I would ask the commission to review that determination and the conditions. It looks like the new owner is going to come back with the final plan for you. Is that correct? Is that what you are expecting? And if so, I'd like to ask you to look at the conditions and see whether those are appropriate.
We can take a look at that, but I think this is kind of an easy fix. If the new applicant, the new homeowner came in with a tree plan that made sense to everybody.
Right, but why is there a requirement for a tree plan if there's no jurisdiction?
Special condition of we do that all the time where there's a negative determination based upon special conditions.
I'm just, honestly just curious. I don't really understand it, but it probably isn't something we can get into much tonight.
I don't think we need to. It's probably not going to be a problem.
Okay.
Because I'm sure that they're going to build a nice place, and they probably want some nice trees there and shrubs, and they'd be happy and we'd be happy.
Okay.
I understand your technical point, but it's probably not necessary to resolve it.
Right. It could be. I only because I represent the owner of the property, and they're working on a purchase and sale agreement, or the terms, and so these conditions are an issue because the question is, are they going to be an obstacle to being able to build? So I think you've given some very useful information tonight. I just had that question. I didn't know why that condition was in there, but whatever.
Just as an addition, Marion, many times you'll have a negative determination with the requirements for hay bales or erosion controls.
Sure, and they're all in, yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also understand that there's a wildlife corridor, which is an unusual situation, and that condition made sense. So anyway, all right, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Walt. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you for your feedback.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is 175 Governor Stoughton Lane. This is 22 Woodlot Drive. Is this the one that was continued, Steve?
No, this is not the one that was continued to next month.
It's not. All right, then I shall recuse myself from this, and I would ask that if somebody could text me when it's time to come back.
We also have an item number 17, informational, 175 Governor Stoughton Lane, Woodlot Estate. John, you'd want to be recused from that one as well?
That's going to be moved to October, Arthur.
Okay, good.
All right, thanks. And I will recuse myself from this next discussion. And please, Steve or Jerry, somebody text me when you're completed. All right.
Yeah, Jerry, better for you as I'm trying to work this screen.
No problem.
Mike
No
Rosati.
problem.
Mike Rosati, are you there? Mike Rosati, are you in the house? He was here earlier. Mike, please unmute yourself. There we go. Okay, Mike. We cannot hear you if you unmuted yourself, but we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, great. Yes, I'm here tonight representing the homeowner for lot number 5 in the Milton Woods subdivision. The homeowner would like to construct a brick patio in the rear of the house. And this would be in an area which was shown as backyard in the original notice of intent filing for the lot. A significant to create the lot or to create the building pad for this lot, a considerable amount of fill was placed in the buffer zone, which is represented by those series of lines off the on the top of the sheet, if you will. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. The patio is up on the plateau, about 10 or 15 feet higher than the actual wetland, and it is in an area that is previously altered by the subdivision. It's part of it is outside the buffer zone, but part of it is in the buffer, and I think we're as close as 70 feet to the resource area.
Yes, Mike, you're showing 61 feet to the corner.
61, was it 61? I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's
61.
That's not a problem.
I see your screen on my computer, but it's very small, and I'm trying to enlarge it, but I don't want to lose what I have either.
Let me enlarge. Okay.
There we go. Yep, that's better for me. Okay, very good. So I'm not sure how familiar or what the commission's recollection of the subdivision is, but there is on the left side of this sheet, you'll see all the grading going down the hill, and at the bottom of the hill is a retention basin that intercepts the runoff from this lot and the lot next to it. That runoff runs over the edge of the slope and down into the basin, where it's where we have an outlet structure regulating it, the flow out of it towards the resource area.
Right.
So we're the house has been built in the correct location. The driveway, everything is as the original plan. It's just that she would like to have a patio behind the house, which partly is also under the deck that was built, that was approved and built, per the approval. And that's what you're seeing there in a darker shade.
So
we've asked,
taking a loan as an
Sorry.
individual project, I think this would, had this been constructed as is, and had there not been an open notice of intent, this patio may have triggered an NOI, or at a minimum an RDA. I think that, based on what we're seeing, I mean, there is a pretty good increase based relative to the side of the house in potentially impervious area. Is there any thought in terms of ensuring that the materials are pervious, doesn't affect the drainage characteristics? I understand that it is previously disturbed, but previously disturbed being constructed as a lawn versus disturbed as being a pervious surface is two different things under the wetlands jurisdiction.
Sure, and we kind of considered the fact that it's not a paved patio, but it's made of brick, which has sand in between the joints.
Yeah, it's still on a compacted base, correct?
Yes, it would be, yes. But we really didn't think that it was going to be significant as far as an increase in runoff, especially since the runoff goes into the detention basin. Basically from this, it's pitched more towards the back than it is the side closest to the wetland. In fact, I believe the wall is a little bit higher than the grade of the patio, the top of the wall. So any slight increase in runoff from that patio would more than be diminished by the basin that's down below, if it even made it that far.
Spacing between the bricks permeable?
The joints are yeah, they're sand filled between the bricks.
Thank you, Mike.
No problem.
Yeah, but I think the end result of a patio like that is that it is impervious. Hans, that's my impression.
Yes, that's correct.
Got one out back behind my house.
It's polymeric sand, which sort of solidifies, doesn't it?
Yes. That's why
I'm
it's
not
used.
sure if that's what they're using, but
Nowadays, but even if not, the amount of water percolation is negligible in that kind of a design.
But we're only talking about 750 square feet of area here, so I'm not sure that even if it was considered impervious, that it would have any impact.
That would trigger, like I said, that proposal would likely at least trigger an RDA if we're taking a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you want me to look into that, if that's a concern, I can do that and
so if you
kind of
can
analyze it.
Yeah, I think that if you can, provide us some assurance that, you'll be able to utilize pervious materials, and so that it doesn't affect the impervious area characteristics, I think we'd be good with it. But, otherwise we'd want to look at what the drainage characteristics are relative to the existing structure and how that would affect the site.
Okay, I think I can come up with something that to at least give you the level, if to justify the level of concern or not. I think I can come up with an analyzation of the patio and see how it affects the pond and show you that it's probably negligible coming out, affecting the discharge of the pond.
Mr. Rosati, at the beginning of your presentation, and I just have to ask you if I have it correctly, did you say that some of the material that was excavated for the building of the house was moved back down this way or not removed from the site?
So in the overall grading for the subdivision, the backyards or the building sites for these two houses was created by cutting on the high side and filling on the low side to create a level pad. That was permitted under the original order of conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
And that was built according to that plan.
Thank you.
And Mike, you did say that it's your impression that the grade runs from the patio down toward what would be the lower portion of this plan. I think it's probably, what is that? I'm sorry, I don't know the compass direction, but I know that the basin is down to the lower left-hand corner of the plan. So you're saying that,
Yes,
that the grading is going in that direction toward the basin. Is that correct?
yes, I think the wall is a little higher than, the top of the wall, the terraced wall that you have there.
I'm sure you are correct. I was there less than a month ago.
Right. So
Yes.
I can verify that. If it isn't, I can look at that to see if there's something that can be done to assure that the water travels towards the basin.
Yes.
I'm almost positive it does that. I didn't think this was going to be an issue, so I didn't really focus on that. So, but
Yeah, and just be aware that I'm in the process of certifying a vernal pool, probably about 100 feet from the toe of the slope. Once you get down the toe of the slope, just as an added sensitive area. It's well into, so I'm not worried about anything from the patio going and hitting the vernal pool, but I just want you to be aware of that. That's all. It's not a big deal.
And I am aware of it. I think we showed it on, or at least the approximate limits of it on the original notice of intent filing.
Yes, you did. That's correct.
Right. I don't think it was certified at that time, but I understand you're trying to get them certified.
That's correct.
And I think there was another one also on site on the other side of the road.
The other one has been certified. Well, the one north of, I don't know, it's number 3 and number 5, I guess it is. North of number 5 has been certified. This one closest to this house has not yet. Yeah.
Would it be appropriate that we do a site visit for this?
Sure, you could do
Yeah,
that.
right. Absolutely. We don't have one scheduled yet, but how does Saturday sound, folks?
Let's take a look.
Steve, I won't be here this weekend or next weekend, so I won't be able to make either weekend.
Okay,
One after that, I'm good.
all right. What's the consensus of the crowd? Wendy, it's at least 8:30 in the morning, right?
At least.
Good. I'm with you. That's why I said it.
Thank you, Steve. Always looking out for me. I appreciate it.
You best. You best.
I could do it this Saturday.
Okay.
I'm
Jerry?
available as well.
Oh, very good. Hans, Jerry,
Yep.
why don't we think about this Saturday then, folks? Just a suggestion.
Did Arthur say he was available?
And mine's up in the air and probably won't come down for another couple of days, unfortunately.
Okay.
This is the 19th?
Yes.
Just go without me for now, and if I can tag along, boy, will I be happy to follow you.
Okay.
We won't have a quorum without you. Right? Wendy, Hans, and myself.
Right. That's correct. We won't have a quorum
Yeah,
without.
good. So who do you have?
Is the next weekend better for you, Arthur?
Let me juggle.
Steve, the next weekend of 26 might be better because in anticipating a possible site visit on that landfill by the cemetery.
Yes.
Oh, in that case, why don't we package them?
Oh, of course.
Would
Oh,
that-
that's what I meant. The time-wise might be better if we, to schedule this for the 26th.
would that be better for everybody else?
Yeah, that's,
I'm fine.
Ingrid?
No, I can't, this weekend and next weekend, I can't make it.
Okay.
And the one after that, I'm fine.
Okay.
Wendy?
What's the date?
Can't hear you. You're on mute, Wendy.
Oh,
Now you're okay. No?
Wendy, that's the 26th.
yes, either this weekend or next weekend is great for me.
Okay. Let's lock it in for the 26th.
Sure. Okay, very good.
Again, for Wendy, 8:30.
9:30?
Mike, you would not have to be there.
Okay, if I can make it, I will. I was going to suggest that maybe I could do a little analysis of the patio as impervious and give you and submit something to you so you can have something to discuss if you wanted to at that meeting.
That'd be great. That'd be very
All
helpful.
right.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you very
good.
much. Yep.
Thank you. Mike.
Yep.
Did I text John?
Sure.
Done.
Okay.
Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome, John.
Oh, you know what I did? I just left my paper in the other room. Hold on. So we are at 739 Blue Hill Avenue. Is that correct?
Yes.
John, just so that you know,
Yes, sir.
we'll be going there for a site walk on the 26th, the same day that we're going to Milton Academy.
Oh, good. Okay. And what's first? Milton Academy or Governor Stoughton Lane?
What's your preference?
Oh, I don't I don't care. It just the two.
So far.
But I'd rather do Milton Academy first. But I'm amenable to any. I'm flexible. If you left it up to me, we'd do Milton Academy, and then I could leave, and you folks could adjourn to 175 Governor Stoughton Lane.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And what time is the first meeting?
8:30.
Okay. All right, thanks. So we're all set on 739 Blue Hill Avenue?
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Good.
And who's presenting?
I'm Andrea Rex. I'm owner of 739 Blue Hill Ave, and we're just here to request a certificate of compliance for the project that we got the order of conditions in 2009 to build a garage with an art studio above and a septic system.
I remember.
I remember it.
Did everything work out?
Everything's great.
Perfect. All right, so what we look for is I have inspected the above site and found it to be in substantial compliance with the approved plans signed by George Collins, PE, whom we all know. And this is for everything, or was this just the septic system?
It's everything. Everything was in a piece.
I know it's a
Oh,
septic area, but I don't remember any.
Oh, he designed the septic system.
Right.
But that was what required all of the major excavation. It was in the, that was the big concern.
And in fact, the order of conditions was for subsurface sewage disposal septic system upgrade. Specifically, John. Okay.
Right, that's what I'm looking at, but I do remember the art studio.
Yes, it's there.
That's good. All right, well, this is what we look for. We look for the letter from the professional engineer. We have it. So I'm satisfied that it was done in compliance and we should issue the certificate of compliance. Do any commission members have any questions or concerns based upon George Collins' letter? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
Moved.
Jerry moved. Was there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Unanimous. All right, Dr. Rex, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. That was easy, huh?
That was good.
Makes you want to come back again.
Next
No
is
comment.
705, 7.
I am again. I am here again, actually. The next one.
All right, so the next one. This is for 705, 723, 739, 751 Blue Hill Avenue.
Yes, and we are requesting that. That was the repaving of the roadway.
Right.
The access road.
I know the big issue was the replacement of the culvert because there was an upstream side and a downstream side. And did it work?
Yes, yes, it worked. It works very well. It stayed very clean. I check it regularly, and I don't know if you have the photo that I took of it a couple of months ago or so. But anyway, yes, we have had no problems.
Because my memory was that there was somebody on Bradley Road or Bradley Road Extension there that had some concern.
Well,
on one side.
yes, they thought that during that big storm of 2010, that the flooding, that the lack of a culvert, or that the culvert that was in existence at the time contributed to flooding in his house, but actually the water level was well above the road. So I don't think that was it. But in any event, we did put in a larger culvert.
All right, and was there also a downstream issue? Isn't there a culvert that goes under Blue Hill Avenue as well?
Yes.
And
That's
are there any
owned by
problems?
the state.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
It's owned by the state.
Right, but is that clogged up or is that free flowing as well? Because I know there was an upstream problem and there was a downstream problem.
I don't remember much about downstream of the of our project, you mean?
Yes.
Or downstream of Blue Hill Ave?
Both.
Well, The meadow there between those two areas floods regularly, but it's supposed to do that. It's a wet meadow.
That's the upper right-hand quadrant, Andrea?
Um,
Right in here, right? I'm sorry,
Yes.
right in here, that's
Yeah.
correct.
That's it. Good. That was anticipated, and it is flooding.
It's supposed to be wet.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And that does, yes, so water does accumulate there during the spring and the fall. But I don't think we've had any, I don't know, I haven't heard of any complaints from downstream.
And I should say that I looked at that culvert with Mr. Crispin back about a year ago, and it was flowing just fine.
Yeah, it's working very well.
He was working on the next property, the housing authority property.
Oh, yeah, right.
We walked down to look at the culvert and the wet meadow, which is a beautiful wet meadow, by the way, folks.
And by the way, I think the culvert's actually on land that you guys own.
Uh-oh.
That's always been kind of funny.
And you have an operation and maintenance plan?
Well, our plan, yeah, we do. It's attached to the order of conditions.
Yes.
And it basically involves looking at it and making sure that it's free of debris.
Correct.
And removing any debris that might clog it up. So, yeah, I've been doing that. But really, it doesn't get debris in it.
It was pretty clear when I looked at it last year as well.
There was some concern at the time that we were there about the edges on either side of the culvert. Are they restored and stable?
Yes.
Very. Yes.
Great.
All right, good. Any other questions from commissioners or concerns? I have the letter here from Jim Burke saying that the driveway has been repaired and the culvert replaced in substantial compliance with the issued order of conditions. All areas surrounding the driveway and culvert have been stabilized and revegetated. So in that, is there a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Is there a second? From Hans, thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you very much. Done as well. And now, that's it. We're now on to 693 711 Randolph Avenue. Right? Thank you, Dr. X.
Thank you.
See. Okay, Jim Burke, which would you like up?
Hi, this is Brian Levy for the applicant.
Oh, yes, Mr. Levy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the continued hearing for the HDMW Apartments on Randolph Avenue. The NOI was filed in April of 2019. Most recently, on August 26th, our consultants, Jim Burke and Scott Morrison, filed a response to the remaining open issues that we've been going back and forth on, along with several attachments. That document was reviewed by your peer reviewer, CEI, and Steve was kind enough to share with me the email that came back from CEI, concluding, quote, "We have received the additional materials submitted by the applicant in response to the outstanding issues and concur with their responses." So as between the peer review consultants, it appears as though there are no open issues. Of course, we want to hear the commissioners' questions this evening, if there are any, and answer them, and then discuss steps to conclude the process. So we're going to sort of rest on what is in the record at this point and await your questions.
I have some. I've gone through the your response. That is that on behalf of DeSelle and Burke. And I have a couple of comments. One on the tree survey. That's my term, and I actually don't have it open to the page, but it's essentially in sequential order. But there's a reference to which trees are going to be taken down, and the applicant agreed to identify those trees that were taken down. I'm looking a little bit more for approval from the Conservation Commission for which ones are going to be taken down. Now, I understand completely that if it's sitting in the middle of a building footprint, that it's going to be taken down. I understand that. But what I'm looking for is we've got to have some kind of a mechanism for saying, well, that doesn't need to be taken down or that should be restored. And if not, then we have our replacement performance standard of 3 to 1. So we need to have that survey done so we know what the landscaping plan would require. So that if you took down a tree, then you'd have to replace it with 3 trees somewhere. And now there might not be enough room on the site, but I think you're familiar with our virtual tree bank. So we do have trees sort of credited in our account that Kathy Bowman keeps track of, and I think Steve has access to. So we need some kind of a tree survey in advance so we know what the landscape plan would look like and should look like in terms of replacement. The second point that I had was on the dewatering plan. We talked about, and I think you agreed to pump the water to a specified site, but the way it's worded right now, it talks about the contractor's choice. And I'm not sure. I don't think everything has to be, means and methods don't have to be cleared by the Conservation Commission, but we do have a environmental monitor that we're talking about. And rather than having some kind of a discretionary call by the contractor, I think we'd be better served to have the environmental monitor have some exercise that discretion and control. Second point. The third point is on the shoring details. I know there was a response. I think CEI had suggested that the plywood for anything less than 2 feet open for less than a half an hour. And the response was, we'll use steel plates for anything deeper than 2 feet. But there's no reference to time there. So I wanted to add some time that if something's going to be open for more than a half an hour, that also includes steel. Fourth point is the on-site environmental monitor. And one of the things I think I've always been skeptical of, and I don't mean that in a cynical way, but it's just that I'm not convinced that your contractor is going to be able to dig a ditch or excavate some of the hydric soil there and maintain the limit of work. That's always been one of my concerns there. And we had talked back and forth for many meetings about whether or not this is going to require a MEPA review if it exceeds the 5,000. So one of the issues for me would be to make sure that everybody understands that an environmental monitor would be watching that very closely, and to the extent that there is some kind of a breach of that limit of work, that we had some kind of a bond in place to ensure that the performance would be to replace that and to ensure stability if you had to stop work and go for a MEPA review. So I guess the key to that comment is a bond. The snow storage, I'm still not comfortable, but you can probably point me to the right places. And I think what you said was that you get 8,700 square feet. It'll accommodate a 6-foot storm. I guess meaning you're going to pile the snow up to 2 feet, 2.1 feet. I'm not sure of that aspect, but somebody can probably walk me through that with relative ease. And then we'd have to have some kind of a maintenance plan to get that snow off-site. And then my next 2 points, there are 2 parts to the last point, and they're probably the most significant. They are for me, certainly. And that is in the spring of 2014, and I think at every public meeting since then, I have asked for a hydrological study. It didn't happen. I have also asked for an alternatives analysis that connects the hydrological study to the difference between a pier-supported concrete plank bridge and the abutment-style culvert that you've got planned. You did provide an alternatives analysis based upon cost, but that hydrological study was not just to stand alone, but was to be utilized to do the alternatives analysis. And when I read your, I think the last page of your memorandum, it came from Scott and Jim Burke, dated August 26, 2020. You basically reiterate what you've told me all along. You're not going to do it. And you gave me 3 reasons, I guess, why you don't think it's necessary. But it's not expensive, it's not time consuming, and I think it is appropriate under these circumstances. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why you've resisted a hydrological study. Now, I understand you gave me a stormwater runoff calculations. You used all the stormwater standards. I understand that. But just at our last public meeting, which was a site walk, actually, we were at Milton Academy, and for the benefit of some of the newer commission members, the Milton Academy environmental representative, Brandon Fagan, went through the whole process that Milton Academy went through, and they had a long-term spill of number 6 fuel oil. And what they did is they put in, with a ditch witch, they put in essentially a plastic sheet to protect O'Hare Pond from any movement. But to do that, they knew they were going to be inhibiting the flow of underground water. And by the way, I understand the fact that in a lot of the land space here that we're talking about, that the water level is at ground level, but it's not at ground level throughout the whole site. And so Brandon Fagan went through in short order the fact that Milton Academy commissioned a hydrological study to look at the mounding and then to address the issue of where does the water go when it is mounds. And what they came up with is a series of gates. So it's not a bad idea to do it, because they had a way of identifying where the increased pressure was going to be, where the backflow would end up mounding, and then how to relieve that pressure. I am absolutely stumped. And I read, and I don't need to go over it here, but I read all the reasons why you don't think it's necessary, and you're not going to do it. And for 6 years, I've been requesting a hydrological study, and you still won't do it. So my perspective is that we don't have sufficient data on a relatively simple issue. For the life of me, I can't understand why you won't do it, but I get it. You're not going to do it. I understand that. I think we need to take the bull by the horns and commission our own hydrologist and have that study done, and then do the alternatives analysis that I've been asking for 6 years. And that would be to compare what is the underground movement of water. And by the way, I also had to go back and I'm not comfortable with the amount of data that I have, because as I look at the roadway, not just where the culvert is, but the entire roadway crossing the wetlands, which is a limited project and requires an alternatives analysis, I'm not comfortable that we don't know the amount of fill that you're going to bring in to construct that road. And my big issue is compaction. And if you just put a roadway over that hydric soil, the first truck over there is going to sink. So you're going to have to add fill. How much fill? I don't know. We do have a fill bylaw that I'm sure you can comply with, but we haven't seen the amount of fill to be brought in. We don't have the compaction analysis as to how much weight you're going to have to be able to sustain to get your 18-wheelers or fire trucks or trash trucks or oil delivery trucks over that roadway, and buses and whatnot. but there's got to be some compaction. And I understand the 3,500 pounds per square inch and the 2,100. I read it. But I don't think we have the data right now to support the conclusion that, don't worry about it, it's only going to be a half an inch extra water. And I don't know where that water is going, and I don't know whether we could have less water than the increase of half an inch if we were to go to a pier-supported plank bridge, which is the alternatives analysis. So those are my comments. And I would ask you to reconsider, I think, a very simple, easy to accommodate request to perform this hydrological study to model the mounding. And I don't think what you've submitted does that. And then do the alternatives analysis with a pier-supported plank bridge. So, and you can respond to those comments, or we can wait until other commissioners weigh in on what their comments or concerns are.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think it'd be great to hear from the other commissioners.
I am in agreement with John. Perhaps, though, we might be in disagreement with respect to the snow storage areas. I'm going to say right now, I'm not on board on any snow storage at all. So those are my two issues.
I'm sorry, what two issues? Snow storage, what was the first one?
For the study.
The hydrological study, okay.
Yes, and I'm adding in no snow storage areas at all.
Any other
concerns? My concerns are consistent with the chairman, specifically with the alternatives analysis and also the hydrological study. Under the Mass Wetland regulations, it seems appropriate and justified.
Anybody else?
I concur as well on both counts, the study as well as the storage issue. We've talked about that as well in the past.
Is that everybody, Mr. Chairman?
No, Wendy, I think.
I would just add that the hydrological study is paramount from my perspective, and has been on the table from the start.
So why don't we walk through these 6, as I counted them, issues that John raised, and maybe we can start.
Brian,
Yes.
Brian, I hesitate to interrupt, but is Wendy still on? And did she have a comment? Because it might make it worthwhile to hear from everybody. I didn't hear from Wendy. She may have dropped off, or she's on mute.
She's muted. Wendy, we can't hear you. No.
How about now?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. I also concur with John's requests for the additional information.
And Steve, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's enough for now.
All right. Brian, thank you for allowing the interruption.
No problem. Mr. Chairman, you did have one item, the snow storage item, where you wanted just us to walk through what it was that we were proposing. And Jim, if you can explain that briefly.
Sure. Everyone hear me okay?
Yes, Jim, thank you.
So we took a plan and we highlighted some areas in blue and proposed them for snow storage and calculated the area. and basically multiplied that area by 0.5 feet, 6 inches, and then took into account a 15% compaction of the snow, which you pile it upon. In a pile, it does compact to a certain degree. And we came up with a volume that would, for a 6-inch storm event across the site, the areas that need to be cleared would form a 2.1 foot mound in those areas.
In what areas?
In the storage areas in blue. So there's 8,700 square feet, I think.
Yeah, that was approximately what I read.
And can you all see the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some blue areas on this screen, snow storage.
So when we were in front of you last time, you wanted greater clarity on the location of the snow storage areas and the amount of snow that could be stored on the site, and we have now provided that. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you had any more sort of more specific question or required greater for clarification of that.
No, I wanted, I guess, confirmation of what I read, and Jim, and you did that. It was 8,700 square feet, 6-inch storm, 2.1 feet of mounding in the storage areas. But I'm concerned with how and when and what the logistics are of getting the extra snow off site. I think at last meeting, Jerry was concerned that, if you've got cars parked there, does that impact on where the storage, I mean, how do you get your front end loader in and out of the storage site if you've got to drive through parked cars? I think that was a logistical issue, and I thought it was a legitimate one that he had. So I'm just more on the logistics side, and then, where do you put the snow if you take it off site? I mean, if it would be part of like an O&M plan as to, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, we'll get rid of it, but you're gonna, dump it in the Neponset River. And I'm not being facetious, because I know there are certain places you can dump it and certain places you can't.
I guess, my quick answer to that would be it's a logistical issue that the property manager would have to deal with. I mean, I know specifically of only really one site that actually charges for snow storage in the area, and that's in Quincy at the Four River Shipyard. They just have a significant amount of area where they're capable of doing that. But I know there's another spot in Stoughton. I'm aware of a contractor that he charges, or for that matter, just manages snow for whoever and stores snow on his property. It comes down to finding areas that are managed for that particular use in the winter months.
Mr. Chairman, also, it seems to me that this is the kind of issue which can be conditioned on the applicant providing an O&M plan that will be reviewed and approved by the staff, and that we really don't need to get into any greater level of detail than we've already dove into at this point. We understand how much snow we can store on the site. We know what we have to do after that point. We've got to take it off. And there will be a way to do it. It can be done.
All right, let me ask another related question.
I think you misunderstood me. I am not going to approve this plan with any snow storage at all.
So I'm not sure who said that. I can't see everybody on the screen.
That's Jerry Burke.
So, Mr. Burke, I did hear you say that. I can't really address that. I'm addressing the question that was raised by the chair.
Okay.
So I heard your position, and you're a no vote on that. I get it. But maybe there are others who aren't. So I think that level of detail is something that either can be conditioned or conditioned with a requirement for a further O&M plan identifying the locations to which the snow will be taken. We don't have that information this evening. I don't know that that's something that precludes us from closing the hearing if that's otherwise appropriate on all the other counts that we have here. If you don't need to hear more about the snow storage, with respect to the environmental monitor, I wasn't really.
Did I hold you there? Because I do have a
Yes.
related snow question.
Yes.
And I don't have the page number, so I apologize, but I bet Jim Burke can find it for me in a second. There was a reference to the use of chemicals for snow control, and I wanted to direct the question to Ingrid because she's much smarter than I am in a lot of areas, but most certainly in chemical analysis. And Jim, do you know where it is? You were using sodium chloride and.
And it wasn't sodium chloride. I think it was calcium chloride.
You're right. It was calcium chloride. Do you know what page it's on? Because I don't want to make a mistake on what the quote is. I know it's in here. Oh, there it is. It's on page 9 at the bottom. It says the applicant proposes to use calcium chloride or magnesium chloride as products that are more environmentally friendly than rock salt. The applicant proposes to use these two products at the minimum amounts necessary to maintain safe conditions on site. And I just didn't know if anybody else too, I didn't mean to pick on Ingrid, but Ingrid, do you have a view on use of calcium chloride?
I would agree with that. So rock salt is sodium chloride. Calcium chloride, magnesium chloride tend to be regarded as gentler on vegetation. So I think that's an improvement. Specifically, what was your question?
You just answered it. That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I wasn't quite sure what your comment was with respect to the monitor. You started talking about a bond, and I wasn't following you.
Right. I put those two comments into one number, and I didn't mean to confuse it, but I just had on my notepad here when I was reading, the on-site environmental monitor would be important to us. And one of the reasons was to maintain the limit of work integrity, because of my concern that in my mind, you've got a constructability problem in terms of digging that excavation literally right on the limit of work. So my concern was that I'd want the monitor to be watching very closely, because my concern, and I think this has been expressed by a number of the commissioners, that if that wall collapses, it's going to go deeper into the wetlands and you're going to exceed just 5,000 square feet. I mean, if you've got an 800-foot trench and you only lose 12 inches, you just lost, 800 square feet.
So I'm not sure what your comment is, though.
So it is that we'd want the monitor to do that. And then as an adjunct to the monitor, if that happens, which I think there's a reasonable likelihood it is going to happen, then we would want to stop and have you get the NEPA review, which we suggested years ago, because I think, just speaking for myself now, that 5,000 square feet, you can't control it. I think you're going to go beyond that, which led me to the next point. And I put it under one number. I didn't mean to confuse it. But because of that, if you have to stop the project to go for a NEPA review, I'd want some kind of a performance bond to make sure that everything is now solidified so that things don't get worse if construction stops.
So first of all, your consultant has already said that they agree with us on the constructability issue. So as between the professionals that are looking at that, they're in agreement. And I understand this is your concern, and you voiced it very clearly, but the professionals don't have that concern. And with respect to a bond, I don't see any need for a bond. I think it's a general principle of construction that one must need to make one site, safe, weather tight, etc. If one is forced to stop work for any reason, I don't know that we need a bond to do that. My client is going to have every incentive to, shore everything up as appropriate, no matter what the circumstance. I don't know that we need a bond for that.
I understand. We have used bonds in the past. It wouldn't be the first or the second or the third time we've done it. We don't do it often, but we've certainly done it in the past.
Well,
And not as a punitive measure, but just to ensure protection of the environment if it's a stop work order.
yeah, so I would suggest to you that that's something that the commission is going to discuss as a condition. We would object to that. We don't think it's necessary for several reasons, but we would oppose that. I don't know that it's really a topic for that, you know, where we need to dive into the merits of it. I mean, we have a difference of opinion on it, but the commission's going to do what it's going to do.
Okay.
With respect to the shoring details, you're talking about some sort of reference of timing that you wanted to understand at what point the additional shoring would be put into the ground. Is that your point?
It is, because your response, or that is the Selwyn Burke's response, addressed the issue of the depth. It did not address the issue of the time.
Right. So maybe Scott or Jim can respond to that.
Scott Morrison here. I think the response and our intent was that, you know, plywood would be used only for shallow excavation less than 2 feet for a duration of less than half an hour. So anything above that, steel plates would be used for deeper excavations or excavations that would be exposed for longer periods of time.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. It just didn't say that. It didn't address the issue of longer periods of time.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay. Thank you. And then with respect to the dewatering plan, you wanted that to be under the control of the environmental monitor to some extent. Was that your point? Yes.
Because as your response to CEI was written, it said that it was the contractor's choice. And
yes,
difficulties with contractors in the past.
Right. So let me ask either Scott or Jim to respond to that technical issue.
You and me, Scott.
I can start and you can probably fill in the pieces, but I think what we've designated is areas for dewatering that the contractor can utilize, with the kind of the specific details will be addressed by the contractor. So we've got locations laid out so that they've got areas for dewatering, but the specific details would be a contractor requirement to ensure that any dewatering water is treated before entering back into the wetland.
I would agree with that, and I think the whole point of the environmental monitor is to kind of monitor the contractor's methodology of construction. And I'd hate to have the environmental monitor all of a sudden running the job, and then then he's ends up being responsible. I don't think the environmental monitor would want that responsibility. Ultimately, it comes down to the contractor with regards to how he wants to control, the stormwater management during construction, as well as erosion control methodology.
However, Jim, this is Steve. I have had to shut down contractors a number of times over the Naval Air Station. In fact, once I did it for about a month while they built a 4-acre settling pond, believe it or not. So contractors can screw up royally.
I would agree with that. And, the thing is that, but you got to kind of keep the, people without wearing the hats of what they're responsible for, wearing the hats of what they're responsible for. If the environmental monitor has to shut down the job because the contractor is not meeting performance standards, and that's his job. The contractor's job is to meet those performance standards.
Steve, it's Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Their response did cite any additional locations to be selected by the contractor and the commission's on-site environmental monitor. I think it's just important that the reason we agreed to that statement is it's like Jim said, it's not just the contractor or the environmental monitor, but it's what makes sense for the environment and the site. I think those statements need to be on both the plans and any conditions.
I agree. Thank you.
We have no objection to that. So the last two items, the tree survey and then lastly the hydraulic study. So my understanding is that this request for a tree survey is not based on any wetlands bylaw or regulation, that it is based on something less than that. I think it's a policy of some sort. But regardless, that does not apply to this 40B project. So the notion that we're taking down hundreds of trees, that we're going to have to provide thousands back to the town, that's just not applicable in this case. And that is our position, that we are not required to provide a tree survey. We have agreed, and we put it in writing here, that we're going to work with whoever is on site for the commission to identify the area where the trees are coming down, and there's going to be agreement about that. We're not trying to denude the site. We just need to take down what we need to take down. But the notion of having a tree survey, an expensive tree survey, and then providing 3-to-1 trees is really beyond the scope of the jurisdiction of this commission in connection with this 40B project. The last point we want to address is the hydrology study piece. With all due respect, notwithstanding your request for many years for additional information, we've made it very clear, the engineers have made it very clear, there's no mounding here, there's no mounding issue, there's no need for a mounding study. And we have provided this information to your peer review consultant. The professionals are in agreement that there's no mounding issue here, there's no downstream flooding issue here, and we have provided an alternatives analysis, which is not simply based on cost. It is based on looking at the impacts to the resources, to the wetlands, which is the key to that type of alternatives analysis. So we have provided sufficient data on this issue. We provide a sufficient explanation as to why no further study on this issue is required. And with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we do not intend to provide a further explanation on this point. We think the issue is closed. The professionals are in agreement, and you will do as you wish.
Please forgive me, but I did have one other question before we go on to discuss your comments. And John, is it appropriate for the protection of those houses? Could you come up a little with the diagram, Steve?
Sure.
For all those houses along Randolph Ave, and
669 is here.
93 to 669.
Yep.
Which are on the north side of the culvert.
Mm-hmm.
Is it appropriate? And I'm relatively newcomer, but that we require a bond for the protection of those houses in case of any flooding?
Good question. I don't know. Yeah, I had considered like a construction or a payment bond related to the construction, but that's really a different issue. But it certainly does relate to my fear of mounding and consequent flooding. So I think it's a fair point, Jerry. I don't know if Brian, you have a response?
Yeah, obviously, Mr. Chairman, we would object to that. There's no evidence of any flooding here whatsoever. There's no basis, in fact, for providing such a bond.
John,
there's a lot of flooding there. We've got a notice of intent in front of us. Oh, we did. We signed off on it. In fact, I think we just signed the certificate of compliance for 669. So yeah, there's a lot of flooding there.
Yes, but the point being, that the evidence that we have provided, the responses, the textual responses, the analysis, the calculations about the pre and post development conditions have made it clear that this project is not going to be causing any flooding. And so to require a bond for something that is not predicted to even happen is not appropriate.
I can't disagree. I disagree. It's unbelievable. But go on. Let's go on.
Right.
Well,
So
I don't want to throw you off stride, but it is related to the flooding. Is it your contention that you've given us your fill requirements for the roadway and your compaction analysis for the roadway? And I'm not talking just about the culvert area. I'm talking about the entire roadway that traverses the wetlands.
I'd have to ask Scott or Jim to respond to that. I think so, but I need the experts to confirm that.
Yeah, Jim can probably jump in here more, but he's provided some calculations for the area at the crossing, which is the deepest amount of fill that's required for the crossing. So other areas wouldn't require as much fill, and there'd be less compaction than proposed at the specific crossing location.
No, that I understood, but that's my concern, that we don't have the data for the rest of the roadway, not just at the crossing, but for the rest of the crossing of the wetland. And I know I used crossing twice, but for the full length of the road as opposed to the culvert abutment.
Well, like I said, there's less fill on other areas, so when Jim calculated it, he provided a calculation of 2,100 pounds per square foot for that area, which has the most amount of fill. So areas outside of that with less amounts of fill would have less pounds per square foot pressure. That, along with the soil bearing capacity of over 3,000 pounds. So it's been addressed. And I believe CEI has reviewed it and is in agreement with that.
As far as the amount of earthworks going on the site, I'm pretty sure that was reviewed when Scott Turner was it Judy Nitch that was doing the review?
Not for us, Jim. That's the ZBA.
That analysis was not done for the Conservation Commission.
Yeah. It's something that I'd have to find. I mean, I could, it's a cut site, if I remember correctly. And I'm looking for it now.
What's a cut site mean?
Meaning that there's more fill coming off the site. I'm sorry, that it's a net cut, so there's more soil coming off the site than coming on.
Jim, even if you find it, we don't have it. Nitch was not our consultant.
I understand that. I'm just saying,
So the issue on the table I understood was this sort of, Mr. Chairman, your issue about this hydrologic study. Yeah. And we're going round and round and round. We have provided all the information that is necessary to be provided on it, and the professionals are in agreement. And we have nothing further to offer.
How could the professionals be in agreement if they don't have the data? We don't have the data, they don't have the data.
You have our position, Mr. Chairman, is that if we look back, not just at this last week, August 26th submission, which sort of brings together all the prior data you had, and in some cases repeats it. There's a memo and there's 4 attachments, and then there are several iterations of memos before that, which address this issue over and over and over again.
Not the fill. Not the fill, Brian.
There's no There's nothing on the table to indicate there's going to be a flooding problem from this project. There's nothing that indicates there's any need for any further hydrology study as a result of the construction of the roadway. And the professionals agree on that.
Well, we think that there is evidence of current flooding, and if you put more dense fill than the hydraulic soils that are there currently, and you compact it, then that's going to create a mounding. That's just common sense. That's not an engineering principle.
That issue has been addressed, and it has been addressed by your peer reviewer as well. We have nothing further to add.
Except the data. And our peer review people don't have the, Matt, you're on the line. You know the quantity of fill that's coming in?
I think what you're getting at is what that, you're talking about a sediment calculation for the amount of fill that's going on in the road and on the site. We haven't seen the cut fill calcs now.
So I would ask Scott whether or not that information is necessary for a determination of the issue that's on the table here. Is that relevant? Is cuts and fills, is that relevant to this question? Is it a jurisdictional matter?
I don't believe the cuts and fills is the issue. I think the issue with flooding is the calculations that Jim provided regarding the 100-year storm events. That calculation was completed and demonstrated that there may be a half-inch rise in runoff or stormwater elevation during a 100-year storm event, and that's completely contained within this site. So there will not be any flooding to adjacent properties. And I think that's the important aspect that the Wetlands Protection Act requires is that analysis, which has been done.
And that's surface water. And I acknowledge that at least at the center of where the culvert is, the water is at elevation. But in the rest of the site, it's not. And therefore, we need a mounding study. Do you agree that would be helpful data, Scott?
Well, think about it for a minute, though. Let's say the mounding analysis comes back that it raises the elevation. Let's throw out a number of 2 inches, which I don't think is going to be the case. But 2 inches above the culvert, well, the water would flow through the culvert to the other side of the culvert. So there's water finds an equilibrium. So I don't think there's not going to be a flooding issue caused by groundwater mounding.
That's what we need the data and we need the study for. And it's not just a hydrological study standing by itself. It's a hydrological study and the mounding impact as it relates to the alternatives analysis. I mean, they're tied at the hip because is there a better way to do this? And that's why I've been so focused on it, because there may be a better way to do it besides the culvert.
So we have done the review of alternatives in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, and we provided that to you. It's been peer reviewed, and your peer review has also signed off on it. So we've been there, we've done this. So with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, we are simply at a point where we do not believe that the commission is entitled to any further information on this issue. You have it all. I understand you disagree. I understand that. But we disagree on that, and we do not intend to provide further information on this issue unless CEI looks at us and says, we need this additional information to make a determination under the Wetlands Protection Act. If they tell us that, we'll give you additional information. But we're not hearing that. We're hearing just the opposite, which is we have provided the necessary information to assure that we are in compliance with the Wetland Protection Act and the stormwater management provisions, the state level provisions. That's where we're at.
Do you agree that Matt Lundstedt just said he doesn't have the fill data?
I know that's what he said, but that's not cut and fill information is not the information that's required under the Wetlands Protection Act and the stormwater regulations. The analysis has been done. It has been reviewed by CEI.
We're not talking about the stormwater calculations. We're talking about the hydrological study that would create a mounding analysis. But we're going round and round. Here's, I think the bottom line, we can probably cut to the chase right here. And that is, we've asked for more information. You've declined to provide it, at least with respect to the hydrological study and the alternatives analysis. If we were to continue this case, we'd need your assent. If you don't assent, then we'd have to have a vote. Otherwise, within 21 days, it would be deemed approved. So if you don't assent to a continuance for this additional data, then we'll need to call for a vote. Is that what you want?
It's not a question of what I want. It's a question of what's required here. And the question, Mr. Chairman, that you have put to us is whether or not this hydraulic study is necessary. Okay? We believe we provided you with all the information. If CEI, the professional, is now going to look at us and say, we have to have X additional information in order to, because you have raised an issue that they hadn't thought of when they signed off on that hydrology analysis response to comments that we gave. If they're now going to say to us, we need this X additional piece of information, we'll provide it. But absent your professional telling us that that's required in order to bolster or confirm our conclusion, we're not going to provide it because it's just not necessary. That's our position.
Understood. So then the question is I think, appropriate to address, and that is, do you assent to a continuance of the hearing or not?
No, I want to hear from CEI. I want to know whether they need any additional information or whether or not they're solid with their conclusion. If they don't need that information, then you can take your vote.
CEI is not a peer reviewer. At every single meeting since 2014, I've cited to the consulting statute that we have approved by regulation, which is part of the statute. They're not a peer reviewer. They are our consultant. And it does make a difference. And if we need the information, then under the Wetlands Protection Act, it says that it is a legitimate ground to deny an application if the commission is denied data that they need to make a decision. It's
Right,
our position that we need the data, and it's not just the cut and fill data, it's the hydrological study and the alternatives analysis. But that is a recognized criterion for denying an application.
But there has to be some scientific basis for the request. You may want information on the weather in a foreign country. We're not going to give that to you because it's not relevant.
All right.
So why would you hold our feet to the fire for information of a technical nature which your own professional is saying you don't need?
Other than asking for it for 6 years? Well, I don't.
Well, you can ask, with all due respect, you can ask for it all you want. But the question is it necessary? And none of the professionals are saying it's necessary. So why are we even talking about it?
All right. Any other questions from commissioners? And if not, I'd ask abutters and members of the public. Commissioners?
Arthur, had we asked CEI specifically if, in their opinion, a hydrological study was needed?
And who are you asking, Arthur?
John, us, you?
Us. I've requested for everybody that listened to me since 2014. I've wanted a hydrological study and I want an alternatives analysis.
So Jerry, if you look at the last submission that we made on page 10, the last sentence says, for all these reasons, further hydrology studies are unnecessary as is a bridge span for the access drive. That is how our last response to comments was concluded. You then received a letter back on September 10th from your peer review consultant saying that they reviewed our responses and they concur with all of our responses. That's where the record stands.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners or Arthur? Are you okay with what you just heard?
I take it that the answer to my response is that we did not directly ask CEI whether or not a hydrological study was needed.
How about helpful to our decision-making process? Needed, necessary, helpful? Would it be an assist? Is it relevant? I don't know. Matt? I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I heard it all. We have not reviewed a report entitled hydrological study. As you pointed out, we've reviewed a report that shows the hydraulics are going to raise that elevation a half inch, and yeah, the culvert can handle that. But we have not reviewed a report that is entitled what you've requested from them, not from us, from the applicant.
Would it, well, we certainly asked the applicant, but do you think it would be helpful for us to have that additional data?
Well, the question is not whether the question is whether it's necessary for the analysis.
No, it's not. They're our consultant, and the question is specific. Would it be helpful? Not, is it necessary?
The additional information is always helpful. What I suspect is that the answer is going to show it's not an issue, but I don't think that's what you're asking, Mr. Chairman. You've asked if that study has been done.
No, we all know it's not been done.
Agreed.
That's what I'm saying.
That's easy.
I think we're arguing about what the study will say. I think you requested a piece of information that you feel can help the commission's decision, and that
it's tied to some other question, and it's not some vague other question. It is the alternatives analysis. Given whatever the mounting effect is, would a better system be a pier-supported concrete plank bridge rather than a culvert and essentially what I call a bridge abutment? So the hydrological study is not just done for hypothetical reasons. It's done to tie it to an alternatives analysis, which we're required to analyze because it's a limited project.
in that respect, that comparison has not been made on that a hydrologic study basis.
Cool.
Is it advisable to have such a study?
That's a very loaded question. There are a lot of studies that, depending on how long you want to do this, that would help provide more information.
It's not a question of how long, because they've had 6 years to consider my request.
Right. It's another piece of data that may indicate, lend additional information to that alternative analysis.
Any other questions from commissioners? Do you want, Brian, do you want time to talk to your client?
No, I do not. We don't think Mr. Lundstedt has said anything any differently than he's already said. The study is not necessary. It may be additional information, but it's not necessary information. You have what you need. My client is not providing a hydrology study.
Do you assent to a continuance of the hearing?
If you are willing to draft an order by the next hearing, we'll consent to continue to the next hearing.
No. The issue is going to be, if you don't consent to it, then we're going to have a vote tonight. It's that simple.
I said we would consent to a continuance were the commission to take the time over the next month to draft an order.
The order is going to require, from my perspective, the order is going to require an alternatives analysis based upon a hydrology study. So at this juncture, my position would be that the applicant has declined politely to provide data that we have requested. We believe it would be data that would assist us in the decision-making under the Wetlands Protection Act. And that in the absence of that data, we would deny the permit. That would be my position. So if you're absolutely not going to provide it, then we might as well have the vote.
We are not providing that additional information.
Okay. Are there any comments from abutters, members of the public? I'll entertain a motion to deny the permit because the applicant has refused to provide information that we deem appropriate for our analysis. That being an alternative analysis for a concrete plank bridge supported by piers and based upon a hydrological study that would create a mounding analysis to determine whether or not there would be additional flooding and whether or not there's a way to alleviate that flooding. And in the absence of that, my recommendation and my motion is to deny the permit. Is there a second? If there's no second.
I second.
Motion. You do?
Yes, I do.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to deny the permit on the basis that I stated, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Right? You've got your appellate rights, and I know you are familiar with them. You ready?
We'll look forward to seeing the decision.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Give me a minute so I can get back to our. I think I just buried our agenda on our motion. Steve, can you read the next one on our list?
Next one on the list is 330 Truman Highway continued hearing. And I'm going to put up one plan, which is the last plan. I guess it's sheet number 15, the last plan. And Mr. Spink, are you there? Anywhere?
Oh, good evening. My name is Aidens Jean Lewis. I'm the owner.
Oh.
Mr. Spink cannot be here tonight. He has an emergency. But as you know, we provided the additional requirement regarding the swell, the bigger swell, as you show it here.
Yes, indeed. I see a larger swale and some Contex Max 2016s, 2 rows, 3 each, with a stone field. And I remember Mr. Spink said that he was pretty much halving the amount of water onto the roadway. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. And I think that's all we need, John.
Yes. And we know that the stone basin is outside the drip line, which presumably will protect the roots of the tree that's encircled on the plan.
Yes.
And I think the original plan went from 1.28 cubic feet per second onto the roadway down to 0.64
Yes.
Cubic feet per second, which is halving, literally cutting in half the flow onto the highway. And I think that's an excellent result.
Yes.
I agree.
Any other questions from commissioners on this?
Nope.
Any abutters or members of the public? Is there a motion to approve the notice of intent?
So
and issue an
moved.
order of condition?
Second.
Seconded. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup, Jean-Louis.
Merci. Merci.
Not again.
All right. Next is 166 Granite Avenue.
Okay. Oh, that's a certificate of compliance request.
Yeah, and for the public's benefit, we did make an appearance at our last public meeting, site visit, and everything seemed to be in order when we were there. We in agreement on that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I think it's appropriate. This is request for certificate of compliance, but was that was with respect to the notice of intent. We also have an outstanding enforcement order, do we not, Steve?
I don't, yeah, we may have an outstanding enforcement order at 166. That's correct. That started the notice of intent process.
The applicant has a representative present tonight. This is George Heiler, representing the current owner. How are you all today?
No,
Very
good
well.
thing.
Yourself, George?
Good, good. I don't believe there was an enforcement order. There was dialogue at the time, at the beginning with Steve and I many months ago, and we did kind of a preemptive removal action with the filing of a RAM plan with Conoco Environmental Licensed Site Professional,
Yes,
as well
thank
as a wetlands, and we did that. So it was never formally an enforcement action since we took proactive efforts to remove the 750 feet of fill that didn't meet the standards, remove it, and then replace it, level it, and it received a RAM completion statement from the Department of Environmental Protection below all, that meets all residential standards. And this was I thought was just a certificate of compliance for the order conditions, which we believe we had met.
And we thank you, George.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to reflect back, and George, I respect what you just said of your conversations with Steve. My memory was that we did issue an enforcement order, but to some extent that it wouldn't matter, because I think that after our inspection, you did appear to be in full compliance. So I don't think that's going to be an issue.
No.
Unless somebody, and this is certainly within our province, if there were an enforcement order, we would be entitled to impose a fine. Although I think our charter and our mandate is to make sure that the area is cleaned up, and I think we fulfilled that. The applicant has fulfilled it. So I'm not too hung up on the fine, but if anybody, we'd have to establish that there was an enforcement order first. And at this juncture, I'm not even sure there was one, but from what you say, George.
I have not seen an formal enforcement order. Our discussions were basically based on verbal conversation, and nothing was memorialized. In addition to that, to just put onto the record that this residential home is now under agreement to be sold in order that the work that was done to address this fill issue, the 750 square feet of fill, could be handled, and the LSP, as well as the wetlands scientist, to be compensated. And I'll leave it at that. So this property is under agreement.
Understood.
And John, I'm just going through my digital files on 166 Granite Ave. I find nothing that indicates we did an EO, but I don't, my file's incomplete, of course, but I have nothing here, okay?
Okay.
And I usually do if there's an EO involved. That's all.
Well, I don't mind issuing this is my personal perspective. I don't speak for anyone else, but I don't mind issuing the certificate of compliance for the notice of intent, because it did appear to be in conformance with what we ordered.
Yes.
And also I'm not hung up on a fine had there been an enforcement order. So what we could, unless somebody feels differently about this, what we could do is simply issue the certificate of compliance on the basis of the order of conditions. And then if we find out something different, then we could resolve that at a later date. Understanding what you just said, it's under agreement, so you probably don't want any delays. And typically, if there is an enforcement order, we'd have to record it, but you'd pick that up in a moment. In fact, it may have already been picked up if anybody's done a title run, if it's under agreement.
There was a title review done, title search, and there was no enforcement order on file.
No, I'm good with a certificate of compliance. Does anybody else feel differently or otherwise?
I have a question. My name is Denise Flores, and I'm actually a person who placed an offer on the property.
Yes.
And I'm questioning regarding the fine because as the person who is interested in this property, I do not want to inherit a fine. And so
Fair
where does
statement.
that leave me as a person who is going to be a wonderful, proud homeowner, but then I don't want to inherit a significant fine?
Yeah, I actually have an answer for you because we just went through a similar situation on Canton Avenue. And that was where a previous owner had violated an order of conditions. And we had not been imposed, but we anticipated a fine. So in the purchase and sale, they set aside, I think in that case, that would have been a major fine. They set aside $5,000 in escrow to cover it. I don't think the fine in this case, even if there were one, would be near that. I think it would be significantly less than 5,000. But if you were to put some small amount of, I'm sorry, what I say small, if you were to put like $2,500 in escrow, until such time as you could confirm with the registry, and it sounds like George already has, that there's no enforcement order there. And if we didn't have an enforcement order, then there'd be no basis to issue a fine, so you'd be safe. But the way to protect yourself would be to put a small amount in escrow until such time as we can confirm that there's nothing on our side, that is nothing issued from town hall. And that we can do tomorrow morning.
Well,
So
I appreciate that.
you could actually find out probably tomorrow morning.
No, I have that. And I definitely know that based on our contract, that definitely is an escrow amount. So I appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much.
Oh, good. Thanks, Denise. Does that make sense to you, George?
Well, again, this would be the first time that I've seen a fine without an enforcement order. But
No,
that's,
don't misunderstand me. If there's no enforcement order, there's definitely no fine.
right.
I just presumed that there was one. And by the way, I'm not looking for a fine. But I don't want to speak for anybody else. Somebody else might be.
Yeah, and again, it's a situation where the effort that was put into this this removal and the cost that was associated with it, I can only speak from my experience that it's a penalty enough, but at the same time, the closing attorneys have not brought that specific filing to my attention, which is an enforcement order. However, they did the order of conditions, which is on file, is what we're seeking the certificate of compliance for.
I'm comfortable issuing the certificate of compliance. Anybody else feel differently?
I am too, John, and I will move accordingly.
Second.
All right. Any further? Actually, I should ask, are there any abutters or members of the public that want to be heard or ask a question? Hearing none, any further discussion from commissioners? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Got unanimous? You did say, are you voting in favor, Wendy? Yes, you did. Okay. Yeah, unanimous. So you got your certificate of compliance. If there's any problem, just stay in touch with Steve tomorrow morning and we can confirm that there's no enforcement order. If there is a problem, we have a public meeting on Saturday. What date is it? 25th?
The 26th, the 26th.
So that would be the latest you'd have to wait to take care of this. But as I said, I can't speak for all the commissioners, but I'm not looking for a fine myself.
Again, if you want to rely on the applicant's attorney's memory, I don't believe there's an enforcement order, but I appreciate the chairman's vote and the vote for a certificate of compliance on the order of conditions.
All right, fair enough. All right, thanks, George, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Thanks,
as well.
George. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Request for certificate of compliance, 106 Forbes Road.
That should be Jim Burke.
I'm back.
He's back.
How are we making out?
Good. There you
So, we're having a problem finding American beech to plant on Sandy's slope. We'd like to replace it with either the other one of 3 of the other trees. So instead of 3, 4 of the 3 trees, we're looking to do 3 of the 4 trees. We can get the white oaks, red maples, or elms. I think one of each would be sufficient to replace the American beech, if that's all right with you guys.
Try.
You say American elms?
Yeah, whatever is specified. Yeah, I think that's what's on the plan.
Yeah, Jim, I suggested you look for sycamore.
We did nothing. I have an email from Ryan Mahoney, who's been searching for the trees for Sandy. He says no American sycamores, no red oaks, no black oaks. Can do pin oaks, red maples, or elms.
Did you check Weston Nurseries?
I don't know who they're talking to tell you the truth. He works for Sandy, so Sandy's probably just telling him to go where he can.
Right. Weston Nursery's got a pretty extensive selection, and they now are in Hingham.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
We're looking. So no, we're looking for the American beech.
I think it's worth a shot.
I think so too. Did you check out Sylvan as well?
Okay.
And there's my friends over at Bigelow.
If we tell you what, if I can't find them, can we have an alternative?
I'd go with the white oak. They're the longest lasting tree.
Is that okay with everybody?
I'm waiting for the arborists here. Ingrid, Wendy, what do you think? Doesn't matter to me. If you said Norway maple, I'd say sure.
Good one,
Jeff. Give it the old college try to see if we can get our.
I'm happy to go along with Steve's suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, I would check them all though. Call them all. It's worth a call.
Yeah.
I agree. It's September. I won't see you guys again till October.
You could see us the 26th.
It's done this
Jim.
month.
You could see us the 26th at one of the locations.
Is there, an agreement to, if we can't, and I'll provide a written statement if we've looked at X amount of places with names.
Sure.
And then if we can't find them, white oaks are sufficient?
Yeah, or I'm good with additional numbers as well of each of the other trees.
Okay.
Either way.
Fair enough. I'll let Sandy know that. I'll tell him to do some more due diligence through the week, and we'll probably have these planted the following week.
All right.
If that's sufficient.
And if you do, let us.
That's a revision to the order of conditions?
It's basically to comply with the decision that you voted on site, 12 trees and 40 shrubs.
Right, but what I'm suggesting is because we did take a vote on it, we'd have to take a vote to revise it in accordance with what you just had, that discussion that we just had.
Right. Revise it to a difference, whatever you found differently from the 40 tree, the 12 trees.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Steve, since you were speaking about the alternatives, why don't you frame the motion that we can vote
on? Tonight?
Yes. So if we're changing what we already voted on, we have to have a vote.
Sure. So.
Actually, we need two votes. One is it's not a significant change, and two, to make the change.
Okay. Jim, tell me what you had originally to plan.
Four American beech, which we can't find. I'm sorry, 3 American beech, 3 white oaks, 3 red maples, and 3 American elms. Yes, that's right. So if we can't get the American beech or the American sycamore, I'm suggesting we do 4 white oaks, 4 red maples, 4 American elm.
Okay, so the motion will be a complex motion. If American Sycamore is available, the American Beach will be substituted by American Sycamore, right? Okay. If it's
Okay.
okay, American Sycamore, yeah, the American Beach will be substituted with American Sycamore, okay? If the American Sycamore is not available, then one additional white oak, red maple, and American elm will be substituted. How's that?
Works for me.
Okay. Everybody got that?
Yes.
Great.
So first motion is this a not a significant revision?
I will move that it is not significant, John.
Is that seconded? It is seconded by Jerry.
Jerry,
All
okay.
right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. It's
Aye.
not a significant
Aye.
revision. Next vote, entertain a motion to make the change as just stated by Steve Ives.
Mhm.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Wendy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, done.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Very much.
All right,
Take
bye.
care.
Enforcement Order 0 Truman Highway.
I guess Tony Caruso is here. Are you still here?
Here he is.
I am.
Very
You
good.
get the Patience Award.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Tony. And I will fill in what you don't. How's that?
Okay. We obviously received a stop work order, for an access way from Truman Highway to the underpass, to the T. Last Friday, Steve Ives, myself, and my contractor went up and down the access way to determine if the 3 action items on the stop work order were met. The 3 items were, 1, that 10-foot wide access way would be staked out on each side, even though we have a 20-foot wide right of way. The 10-foot wide is where we would be graveling. So that was staked out. The second item was there was a down tree down the end near the tracks, the Fairmont line, and that was leaning over the roadway. That was removed. In fact, it got worse over a couple of days later, so it was a good thing that was pointed out. That was removed.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing, there were multiple piles of debris that my contractor with his Bobcat had pushed to the side, consisting of brush debris, tree parts, and mixed in with dirt. And there was also a trash pile that somebody, I don't know who, some neighbor dumped at the entranceway right off Truman High, which consisted of wallboard and a few things. There was there's actually 2 piles. One pile had a toilet in it and
It was demolition debris.
yeah. So all those were removed. And we took out, I don't know, 4 or 5 dumpsters, loads, and removed everything. And we walked the site last Friday, and Steve was there, and I'll let Steve cite his observations.
And they did everything we asked and more. So I'm good with lifting the enforcement order. That would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any questions from commissioners? Okay. And just so that we just had the discussion with the previous 2 previous applicants go about the potential fine. I'm not interested in one. I'm not asking for one. We're trying to get it cleaned up, and it sounds like that's been done. So I'm happy, but anybody else can weigh in if they have a different perspective.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Same.
Everybody? All right. So we can then lift the enforcement order And thank you, Tony, for a rapid response.
Okay, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay,
Do
good.
you need a vote on that, John? Or consensus?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, thank you. So is there a motion to lift the enforcement order?
So moved.
Seconded. Ingrid? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Unanimous, Tony. Thanks.
Will we get some document from Steve or somebody indicating that? An email would be fine with me, but anything to,
Yes.
Was it recorded?
Yes, it was.
All right, so we'll have, then we definitely needed the vote, so we'll have to have a withdrawal of that or some kind of a recording.
Kathy told me, we talked about this today, John. She said that she had a form where folks get to sign off on the lifting of the enforcement order on a form that we also record at the registry.
Okay, we'll get that done, Tony.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Next on the agenda is 137 Bradley Road.
Is Mr. Gannon here tonight? I do not see him. Mr. Gannon, are you there? In any case, last week I went and visited the site. Mr. Gannon and a laborer were working on additional debris that we had not seen actually on our site visit that was along the fence down to the southwest corner and the northwest corner. There was even things such as an I-beam and a whole bunch of concrete debris, some fence post base, etc. They were bringing that all up. The one thing they didn't touch was what we saw, and I spoke to Mr. Gannon today, and he said that he would be removing it on Friday. So may I suggest we hold this over to our next public meeting? We may not need to see the site. I could go take a look at it, but I'd like to maybe discuss it on the 26th, if that's okay with everyone.
It's fine with me, but I'm concerned that it sounds like more debris was dumped there.
No, this was old debris, John, that was hidden by the shrubbery that we never noticed.
Wow. Including an I-beam.
Yeah, including an I-beam. It was probably 10 feet long. No kidding. There was some old staging and there was some old wood at the very southwest corner along the fence as well. And I guess he decided to pick all the tough stuff up and didn't pick up the soil, organics, and a little bit of stones and concrete that we saw when we visited. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Do you know if the house is under agreement?
I don't believe it is, as when I saw it last Friday, the sign was still up.
Okay.
That means anything.
Let's put that on the agenda for the 26th, because if it does go under agreement, they'll be looking for a pretty rapid response from us.
Right. Will do.
All right, thanks. Next one is been continued until October. That's 175 Governor's Stoughton Lane. Next one is the discussion of the proposed tree policy, and then we'll finish with additional business. Proposed tree policy. I don't know where we are. I know we started this discussion previously. And I confess that I have done nothing further on this.
Let's see.
Hans, this was your child. So how's your baby?
How's the baby?
You're on mute, Hans.
So I guess at this point, it's just whether if anyone has any comments or if they would suggest any modifications. The last piece is the calculation of the cost for where on-site planting is infeasible and who's able to provide us that calculation just so we can include that language in the policy. And that should be about it. I mean, unless anybody has any comments or concerns.
Well, I want to thank you for your time and effort in it. And I'm prepared to accept it as it's written unless anyone has some changes to it they want to make.
Up here, I agree with Jerry, and I really like some of the details that you put in here, the time within which the tree has to be replaced, the duration of a couple of growing seasons, etc. It's just very well thought out, and I think it will serve us all very well.
And what is the dollar? I don't have it in front of me. What's the dollar amount? And Hans, what are you proposing?
I didn't have anything entered, so I was kind of relying on what you had used in the past, or whatever input you had sought otherwise to get the amount that you generally use.
We've generally used between 400 and 500, and the 400 was based upon 250 plus 150, 250 for the 2-inch caliper tree and 150 for the planting, and then that kind of went up, but it was like 350 for the tree and 150 for the planting, the labor.
Should we maybe?
We ended up getting to 500.
Do we have somebody in Consolidated Facilities that can provide us an updated estimate cost?
We were using, what's the landscape at charge you, if you?
I might be able to, because I'm actually getting a tree delivered in a couple weeks. What's our timing on it?
What, say it again, Ingrid?
I'm getting a tree delivered and installed in a couple of weeks, I hope. 10 to 12 foot. Don't know exactly what the caliber is, but a pretty good sized tree. And I'm looking for estimates as to, helping me install it. So I might be able to provide some information after that's occurred.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and you think you'll have that by the 26th when we meet again?
I don't know. Apparently, lots of people are doing work on their houses and lots of people are buying trees and getting them installed. And this guy told me that he probably will not be able to come out within 2 weeks, but I'm hoping that he will. I've only got one, so it's a pretty small job if he can slot it in. I'm going to try to chase him down again tomorrow so I can ask him the question. So this is just for installation, right? Or
Well, it's a tree plus the installation.
okay.
But 10 to 12 feet sounds like a big tree.
It is a rather big tree.
So yeah, I suspect you're going to be more expensive than we're talking
I
about.
want to ask him, what's our benchmark? Like how big, which I tell him?
Well,
Yes, so like a 2 to 3 inch caliper tree.
Yes.
Milton Cemetery might be a good source of information for this. I just saw a video today where they planted a 10-foot tree in 9 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Wow.
You shoot it out of a cannon?
They injected it.
Wow.
What about DPW? Steve, do you think that Kathy would have any view on that in terms of?
Well, if not
Hey,
Kathy, maybe Chase.
Chase, oh, yeah, okay.
I'm putting it on my to-do list to call Chase.
So let's reconnoiter on the 26th and we should be able to fill in the blanks.
Yes. Right.
Anything else on tree policy? Thanks, Hans, very much. I echo
you,
what
Hans.
Jerry and Arthur said, and I know that Ingrid and Wendy say it.
Absolutely.
Gotta start creating my legacy.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah, just going back, because we're just about finished, I should tell you something, and Ingrid, you'll remember this, but at the burial service for Judith, it was one of the most beautiful days I can remember. And the minister, who was saying some very kind words and inspiring words about Judith, said, stop and just take a look around you. The sky was perfect. And it was just a gentle wind, the temperature, it was the most beautiful weather I had seen. And the minister said, the good Lord is smiling down on Judith because it's such a beautiful day, and let's enjoy the nature that she sought to preserve. It was just a beautiful spot in Milton Cemetery and a beautiful day. It just popped into my mind. So there is something. And this is a great segue into Milton Conservation Commission signage. So Arthur, tell us about this, because we could do something like this for Judith.
It would be great. This is this sign design, size specifications, et cetera, that we approved several years ago. The Railway Village Historic organization is using this same design. It's been approved by the sign committee, then goes to the Board of Selectmen for its final approval. And I just wanted at this point in time to build upon what they did and see if we could now, with your approval, take this to the sign committee for their vetting and recommendations and hopefully approval. And once that's done, move it on to the select board for approval. And then locate resources where we can begin to post these in appropriate locations. The planning office in town is doing an inventory of all town lands, including conservation lands. And I've asked when they finish that if they would have the map for us. They're researching the deeds as I understand it, and that would help us in determining whether or not we want to identify any of the parcels by a specific name like we have here in this model with Pope's Pond. So I leave it to you, and if it's okay, I'll pick up the ball and run to the next step in the journey. If not, let me know.
Arthur, I think there is an existing map, and I thought I had a copy of it, but are they generating it or are they updating an existing map?
I think they're updating the existing maps
Okay.
now that the new town planner is in place.
Yeah,
Tim and Allison are working on this together. I just learned this recently.
because the master planning committee had such a map. This is like 5 or 6 years ago. And
Right.
John Cronin was instrumental in gathering the data and assembling it. And it did go to the master plan committee. And so if it's updated, that's perfect.
Yeah, we have had a number of parcels that have been transferred to our name in the past few years.
Right.
That's good. We salute you, Arthur, for taking the lead on this, and I think that's beautiful. So I think you should take the next step and get it to the select board, and hopefully you'll vote in the right direction on this one.
Okay.
I agree.
Looks great, Arthur.
They approved the other one, so off to the sign committee is the next step. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Arthur.
While I'm on the platform, can I take another minute to just talk about the CPA, John? Would
Oh,
that be
sure.
okay?
Yes.
This is the Community Preservation Act. Town meeting approved putting this on the ballot with the number 3, with the November 3 election that's forthcoming. And if you're not familiar with the Community Preservation Act that was enacted in 2000 by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it provides resources to support initiatives in communities in the areas of affordable housing, open space preservation, and natural resource protection, active outdoor recreation, and historic preservation. There is a committee that is working on this in town. They have a website, and I'll give you the website address. It's very simple, 3 words running together. Yes for Milton, or yesformilton.com. I encourage you to go on it, take a look at the bullets that run across the top, the buttons running across the top, and I would encourage you, if it is your inclination, to make an endorsement. We as a commission as a whole would not do that per se, but we as individual commissioners could, and it would be great to say that the members of the Conservation Commission unanimously endorse the CPA initiative, but that's your judgment. I did mine today, and I put a quote in, and hopefully others will do the same.
Arthur, did this come up about 10 years ago and get voted down?
Yes, it did. 2016.
Okay.
And now we have about 50% of the communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have adopted CPA. And just about every one of the communities surrounding Milton has done so, including recently the city of Boston, interestingly enough. So every deed registration puts money into the funding. We're not getting anything back. These other communities are. So my point is that we're competitively losing ground if we don't jump in and get our fair share of the pie, regardless of what the size of that share might be.
And may I say that my community, Norwell, was one of the first communities to start this. And our latest purchase was $3.1 million for 141 acres in our town. So we've done very, very well. We've done some affordable housing. We've done some active recreation, and we've done a lot of historic preservation as well. Literally millions of dollars in the past almost 20 years now.
Yeah, can you review that? I happen to know this, and I was talking to Arthur and Steve today about it, but does everybody know that the money is, some money comes directly from the deed transfers, and the Register of Deeds each year sends out, I don't know if everybody gets it, but I know I've been getting it for, 10 years or so. It's an actual listing of how much each town got, and there's a matching amount from the state. But the money is to be used in 4 different areas. And Arthur, I think you know this perhaps better than I, what the 4 areas are: the affordable housing, the open space, the active recreation, and Steve, what was the 4th one?
Historic preservation.
Historic preservation, right.
Yep.
So there's no guarantee that it all goes to open space, but some portion of it will go to open space, which is the reason that we should probably individually support it. My question, Arthur, did you think further about whether or not it's appropriate or not appropriate for the commission to, take an official stance on this? I know it has a
didn't get a chance to check that out. I have the sense that it's probably better, at least as a first step, for us individually to act, and then we could say, as I mentioned, that all the members or the board unanimously did so, and then if it turns out that may make the commission as a whole moot. We are an agent of the government. By the way, if this does pass, a committee is established. There has to be a representative from the Conservation Commission on the committee. It can be 5 to 9 members, no more than 9. They make the recommendations as to where the funding will go in the community. I think 10% of the funding has to go to each of those 4 areas. And then the rest is determined by the committee as a recommendation to town meeting, and town meeting then approves or declines the recommendations of the CPA committee.
And may I say that our Conservation Commission actually led the effort in our town. They were the ones who got out the vote, as it were, and were the strongest advocates for this, for advancing the CPA, the act. Just
Okay,
FYI.
so we put on your jammies tonight. Google yes for Milton and act diligently.
All right, thank you, Arthur. I appreciate that. Sounds good.
Jerry, you have an issue you'd like to be very brief on, right?
Yes, because we're going to be doing a site visit, but it is a parcel of land that's adjacent to Unquity Brook and a cemetery, and the cemetery's pond. Steve was able to observe, and he calls it a landfill. I thought somebody mentioned that it was more like a transfer station for all their landscaping debris, but it looked like it was more than just landscaping debris. I don't know. That's the importance of the site visit. I did talk to a couple other people, and I'm not going to mention who, DPW and also the inspectional service people. There's nothing on record that they sought a permit for it, and it needs to be examined, especially with respect to Unquity Brook. So we're going to be doing a site visit, so I think I'm sharing it with you now.
Thanks, Terry, for keeping your eyes open.
And one last thing, you remember we were over at 160, let me think, 1 Truro Lane with our last site visit, and Arthur's eagle eyes spotted some old white goods behind number 151 Truro Lane. And I spoke to the owner there, or one of the residents there, Matt Mercer is his name, and he actually took the white goods, put them in his truck, and brought them to the DPW without me even having to ask Chase to do it, which was really great. And they had been there for at least 37 years, Mr. Mercer's neighbor noted.
Wow.
So we have to give him some kudos tonight.
Yes.
Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Dragging the heavy white goods out of the Pope's Pond Conservation Area. And that's all I have right now.
All right, we have one piece of additional business, and that's for Wendy to tell us, is that a tiger?
Oh, gee.
This is Teddy the miraculous wonder cat, actually. Teddy is let's see if I can get him to pose for you. He sorry, the virtual screen is a little kooky. No, Teddy is a Devon Rex. Actually, he looks a little strange because he doesn't have a lot of fur, and he's also had a lot of health problems. So he's lost even more of the fur that he didn't have to begin with. But
was he the one running around New Hampshire wild?
no, that was not Teddy. No. No, poor Teddy. The poor guy. He's really a frequent flyer at the vet's office. He's going through his 9 lives really quickly, but he's still with us, and he loves Zoom more than I do. So
Well, good to meet him.
Thanks.